All right. Oh, let's see. All right. Let's see. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Um, doing a split screen or picture in picture. Hmm. Okay. These are great questions. Okay. So, good morning. Good morning. All right. So, welcome to our Tech Talk Q&A. We're going to be doing a little bit of sound check and a little bit of note taking before we start at 11 Pacific, which is in about 28 minutes. I know this is my first ever do-it-yourself haircut that I did. Um, lots of things that I learned, things that I will do differently next time as well. But it was a great, a great uh, first time. So I'm gonna pull up something that I'll have in the beginning, but let's see. Boom. Awesome, that works. Okay, so you never really know until we start going, but it is just wet right now. It's gonna dry off in a little bit, but today's big things is really to walk you from point A to point B. You know, we're sitting here at our computer. We need to take an audio signal, we need to take a video signal, and transmit that to whatever streaming service we want. So eventually we'll talk about the different patterns to get to these different outlets and everything in between. So we'll have a general breakdown. We'll have a general breakdown and then kind of go into details about some camera tips. We'll do some microphone tips as well, talking about the distance, how that plays in effect, where to place your mic, the differences between your onboard mics versus USB mics versus XLR mics versus field recorders. I mean, so we're gonna really touch on everything that we can, and luckily, this is my other passion in life besides music. And for the last 10, 15 years, I've always had like my ukulele and my camera with me when we traveled. And so we've tried out so many different combinations. So this workshop today is going to be kind of that accumulation of experience and things that we learned the hard way, things that that we want to make sure that you guys can think about before investing in some of this gear. And I'm going to break down a couple options to just to make sure you're able to utilize what you already have before even spending a dime. So we'll talk about all of those different things. Will we have a summary after the broadcast? For this one, because it's going to be a discussion, because there's going to be a lot of Q&As, and because there's going to be a lot of things that Diane and Adrian bring to the table, I'm not going to have necessarily a summary. There's going to be a lot of stuff that I have written down already that we'll put available on our website, but this live stream will be archived again, so that you can revisit, and I'll try to put timestamps for the different sections as well. Oh, so we are moving to Oahu. It's going to be fantastic. September 15th is the big date. Really, really excited. Aloha, everyone. Oh, this is so cool to see everyone. I know there's so much going on today, too. But it's great to see you guys. Awesome. Awesome. A lot of Northwesterners. Northwesterners? Looking to get a minute. Okay, good. Yes. We'll talk about Zoom, and we'll talk about some of the limitations of some of the platforms like Zoom. Zoom still has some quirks where certain devices actually don't pop up in its menu. So, I mean, there are things that a lot of these different programs are still adapting to it, especially Zoom. They didn't expect to see such a big jump in their business from this year. So there are a lot of kind of growing pains that they went through. But we'll talk about our favorite platforms and why we do the things that we do. Now this is gonna be fun. Oh, hi Ruth. Oh my gosh, you guys are awesome. Yes, we got a bunch of Midwesterners too. Brian, it's always great to see you. Oh my gosh, and Cameron will be making a debut. They're off in the other room, kind of getting changed and feeding. Cameron just had crushed up strawberries for the first time yesterday. That was really, really cute. We're excited to feed him more food. We'll definitely talk about lighting for sure. Great question, Nani. Yeah, well, I'm going to spend a good chunk about lighting and how to achieve different effects and make sure that you look good. We will be in Manoa Valley. Oh, Betsy, thank you. Great to see you as well. Kathy and Marcy, you guys are our favorites. Teko, aloha, or Ohio. No, wait, it's not morning for you though. Well, it's morning for us. Ohio. Arizona. Oh, nice. How have you liked Jamulus? Jamulus is a decent option, I've heard. It can get quite expensive. But for me, I just tell people, just practice during this time. You guys can jam later when everything clears up. There's so many. It's not easy. It's not quite the same regardless. And for me, I'd rather just wait till things get safe. Multiple cameras for teaching. Yes, I love using multiple cameras for teaching. Just like our Artist Works curriculum, I think they had like 6 cameras set up with our favorite was like the overhead shot to kind of get a point of view of what you would see. I love, and that's the thing about, being in person is that you can move around, you can, adjust things. Having the multi-cameras definitely does help. And usually if I'm doing a teaching workshop, I'll have another camera that's like square on with my fingers that I can switch to compared to this wide angle here. Aloha everyone. Oh, I should write that. This is just sound check. So people don't freak out. Welcome. Oh, I should. Is sound check one word? Yeah. Close enough. Okay. Oh my gosh. Oh, that is kind of cool that you get to watch on TV. Can you go over mic sample rates? We can definitely get to that. Tom, that's a great question, and I think a good place for that is when we have our guests Diane and Adrian come on, because they will. That's a really good question. Yeah, it's gonna be great. Chris, always great to see you guys. Glenn, Craig. Oh my gosh. And sorry if I missed anyone that was logged in already. I'm still kind of catching up. Oh, Steven. Let's see. I'm close to. I'll turn my mic up a little bit. Usually I'm more into the mic about this. How is that volume for everyone right here? Because I'm close to kind of peaking out on my end, I think. Oh my gosh, driving home from Wyoming to Texas. Good luck on that drive, my gosh. Oh, sure. Oh my gosh. Oh. Hi. You okay, buddy? You look tired. Come in, say hi. Let's see. What do you gain standing for audio? Whoa, what do you gain standing for? Glenn, can you repeat that question? Uh, oh, weird. Sarah, if you can answer Heart of Messiah's question with our email. She's an artist work student. Said emailed a few times but never received an answer.
Weird.
Yeah, that is weird. Okay.
Sometimes
Oh. Oh, nice, Chantel. Good to see you. That's a good one as well. Let's see. What kind of laptop do you use? So, most most of the gear that we currently use, excuse me, is gonna be overkill for a lot of people. So that's why we're gonna be bringing up things in many different budgets. But the current laptop that we have, I'll be using for a lot of not only streaming but heavy video editing as well. So I do have. We did just get. I know it's kind of bad too because I know Apple is creating their own silicon, but we got their new 16-inch MacBook Pro with the 5600M graphics card, which I'm really excited about. That's more on the video editing side of things, which is again overkill for streaming. Yeah, Emily, that's great. Yeah, I'm so excited for Cameron to grow up with that kind of island mentality where we're all in it together. There's such a big focus on making sure everyone is okay. So I'm so excited. He's gonna be around family. Yes, we will be discussing different camera setups and different cameras. Talking about the difference between built-in cameras to iPhone cameras to USB webcams to DSLRs and mirrorless cameras as well. Let's get the stream up first and worry about enhancing down the road. Camera is the biggest question for me. Yeah, we'll definitely give you guys some options for the camera setups. Let's see. Stephanie. I keep having to record myself for various lessons. Other than my phone, what would be the best camera to set up? So a lot of people also forget that there is like this forgotten category of cameras, which is the camcorders, right? Like the ones that are just made for like recording, your kids' sports events or dance recitals, that kind of thing. I always feel like that's what they're known, or soccer games, right? The thing about those is that the autofocus is actually really, really good. So and usually we'll have a flip screen. You can find some really decent ones if you're just worried about recording and then publishing it later. That is a really nice option. What platform? And we'll dive into the cameras more for sure later on.
And I saw that Ashley. Oh, sorry.
Is your camera on? Is your mic on?
Yep.
Your mic's on?
And mic should be on. It should be. I unmuted the channel. Hopefully you can.
Okay.
Hopefully you can see it and hear it and all that good stuff.
Okay, I'm gonna put camera on. Not camera. Let's Sarah on for a second. There we go.
Well, it's both of us. You could say that. That's fine. So hopefully everybody can hear me. Okay. So Ashley had asked the question about Skype versus Zoom. I know we like Skype because the quality is just so much better. But it's harder to do like giant jams and stuff, right? But Zoom is great for conference call type situations, even though the video quality and audio quality isn't as good as Skype.
So so like Nani's, platform-wise, we are using YouTube, and for the software, the streaming software to get there, we are using OBS.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And we'll be going over. I have, I think, 4 mics that I'm gonna do tests for you, so that you guys can hear hear differences between the different ones. Hopefully, though, because we are streaming, it is getting compressed, so you won't hear all of the nuanced differences, but we'll still go through all of them. Isn't that right, Baba?
Yes, and we'll definitely talk about the chain of everything that's connected for our setup and for simpler setups as well. So we'll be walking through that when we officially start. So this is great. So we are using OBS in the background to organize and grab all the different signals, all the media that we use to connect the iPod, to connect the camera signals, to connect the audio, and then it pushes it out to YouTube. So again, we'll kind of break that down again.
And then somebody had asked about what do you do if your stuff doesn't sync post?
Huh?
Somebody had asked about if your audio and video don't sync.
Oh, so for streaming, I mean, you have to just, there are a couple different ways. You can delay things within OBS. You can delay things within the switcher itself that we have. But in post, you would use whatever video software that you have, because typically your audio, if your audio signal is split or detached, you'll then, sometimes they can do it automatically, like Logic, not Logic, Final Cut Pro, or else you have to manually look for where those things should line up. And that's why they use a clapper at the beginning of scenes, so they have that big spike that they line things up to with the video and audio.
And sometimes we just literally clap.
For OBS, we are pushing out a 1080 signal, and I think we're only doing 48K for the audio.
Everybody has such great questions.
Yeah,
Thank
this
you guys.
is great. We haven't even started yet.
And I did see that Diane is actually in the chat as well.
Hi, Diane. We're so excited that you guys are here.
Yes.
And again, two amazing guests today that we'll have on board about 20 minutes after we officially start, and they have so much knowledge to share as well, because they've been doing so much during this crazy year as well.
And people are asking about Cameron's outfit. This is his Incredibles onesie that he got from his cousin. So here he is. He's pretty incredible, but I mean, we're his parents, so we, of course, we think that. But yes. So this is when our nephew dressed up as Jack Jack. But it's a really soft and really comfy outfit. So.
World Ukulele says, how did Cynthia Lynn and Ukulele play at the same time with no sync issues? Well, it depends if they were live but showing a pre-recorded video, or they were, I mean, there's a couple different options, but you cannot, I mean, you can use a standardized audio as a backing track, but that's not the same as playing together as you would in person. There's nothing yet technology-wise that gets over the latency the issues. We just don't have that technology yet.
And hi, Marianne Brogan. It's great to see
aloha.
you. Yay.
Yeah, so this is gonna be great. Do you still need OBS if you're streaming through the A10 Mini Pro? So the benefits of having OBS is that I have way more control over everything. I can have more than one picture-in-picture. I can have the iPad connected for lyrics or chords. I can, there's just, for me, there's so many more options to be able to run through OBS. Do you still use, Chris, we've never used their beta yet, just because I heard it's not the best. So we've, even from last year, we used to run a bunch of these guys, and we'll talk about this in the stream itself too, but this was to get an HDMI signal to a USB, and it acts like a webcam. So this, and there are a couple other options now as well. There's like these little guys that we'll talk about, which were like $23 on Amazon, that do the same thing. There's a little bit of video quality loss, but that's the best bang for your buck that you could get, and I'll bring that up again later on. The switcher is pretty much like 4 of these built into one, plus other options. So that's why we went that route. And also, this is way more taxing to have like 4 different signals into your computer for it to process.
And yes, this will be available afterward. This session will be recorded, including this Q&A, and it'll be on our YouTube channel. If you're on our mailing list, I usually will send out the link to the recording so you don't have to go hunting for it. I usually do it either the night or that night or the next night.
And Glenn, that is, I mean, I heard good things about jamming this audio, but correct me if I'm wrong, you still have one person who's pretty much leading, and it actually adds latency for other people to then be able to link up with that same signal. So one person is kind of conducting or going through things, and other people are playing with that signal together, which then converts it into like almost making it sound like everything is happening in real time. Is that correct? Because, in this kind of stuff, too, there's been such a push because, obviously, this kind of technology has been pushed hard during this time where it is important. And so we are hoping to get close to this. Yes, OBS is free. Yeah, let's see. So here's a link to OBS that we use.
Oh, sorry. Apparently Cameron had something to say. Yes, sweetheart. What would you like to tell the people?
So again, we are starting officially in about 8 minutes. So if you just joined us, you're... Gotcha, thank you. Let's see.
Nice. Let's see.
Can anyone help with access to chat? I can either see it or Craig and Sarah, but not
Yeah, I'm not
both.
sure, Eric. I'm not sure about that, but I do agree with somebody had asked about if you have the live chat on or if you have the top chat on. But we can see what you're typing, so you're in the chat. So I'm not totally sure how to help you. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Jim. Thanks. That's what I'm still thinking. Like, it's not quite the same still.
Yeah.
There is again, and like I said, even I haven't found anything that can completely ignore the latency issue compared to one person just kind of taking charge while other people follow and connecting it.
And hi, Marlo. It's great to see you. Thanks for joining us. That's awesome. And also, don't forget to, guys, if you wouldn't mind just liking the video, that would be awesome because it helps them show up better in the queue on the YouTube. So if you are signed in, go ahead and just click the like button if you like it. If you don't like it, then you could click thumbs down or you could go somewhere else. That's also okay too. I see that somebody...
I would click live chat.
Yeah, live chat for sure. Yep.
Awesome. Yay. 5 more minutes. Let me see if there's any other questions that I missed from the very beginning. Yeah, we'll talk about USB mics. I can't scroll up that far now. Okay.
And thank you guys so much. This is going to be a lot of fun. I'm excited.
Yeah. Okay. So, any other quick questions that we can go over in the next 5 minutes before we officially start? And our last, so we have one more live stream planned before the move. It is going to be August 9th. Oh no, so we have to.
We actually have something tomorrow.
Yeah, that's right.
It's not on our channel though. It's going to be ukulele for jazz singers. It's Diane's channel, and we are going to be chatting about comping and singing, and it'll be really fun. That's tomorrow's live stream. I believe it starts at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. We'll probably chat with Diane and Adrian about that when they're guests today. But it's going to be really, really cool getting to have those kinds of in-depth discussions. And those of you that didn't see Diane during the second mini fest, we highly recommend checking out that live stream. She's going to be doing some teaching. They're using the song Caravan, I think, and there is material that you can get prior for that one. So I definitely recommend going to, I think it's ukuleleforjazzsingers.com, or you can go to our website to our events. I have a link directly to it on her event, and that's tomorrow. And then August 9th, we have Craig. Everybody has been asking for a theory one, so Craig is going to do the start of his super non-intimidating, amazingly easy to understand, you're going to have so much fun theory class, which also goes into soloing. And that starts at our standard time, which is 10:30 Pacific. Q&A, 11 o'clock is when sort of the meat and potatoes of the actual workshop begins. And that one will actually have a packet available that will be the $5 donation. It's not available yet because we still need to do finishing touches on it. But it's going to be a little different in that you'll be filling some of the stuff out on the packet yourself, but you will get a follow-up packet that has things filled in as well. Because Craig doesn't want to give you all of the answers right away in the packet. He wants you to work through things because that way it'll stick a little bit better. So that is August 9th. And then we were going to do one, I think, on the 30th, but we decided to just postpone that one, which was going to be a song arranging one. We'll do that one, I know, but I think we just need to focus on packing and moving, and I need to finish up any strap orders that I've got because my sewing machine is going to get packed up soon. So yeah. And then also, we will be having like a big sale. I've already posted our CDs. There's a bundle you can buy, which is like everything that we still have printed of. You can buy a bundle of all of the music we've got in print, and help us not have to take that to Hawaii. So you can check that out. That's at our store under the physical CDs. I'll end up having strings listed eventually. I just haven't had a chance to do string bundles yet. And I will have some straps for sale. Currently, I've had to stop strap sales because I can't keep up with demand currently with Mr. Cameron and the orders. So I've temporarily stopped with that. I'm still going to be making the rest of the orders that I've got, and I have some stock, so I'll post the stuff that I actually have finished probably next week on our website. Yeah. Yay. Okay. And there is not a packet for this session, no, because we're just going to be discussing gear and going through things, and it's going to be, I mean, some stuff we have planned out, but I know there's going to be some things that just come up. So I know Craig mentioned that he might try to do some time stamping within the video so that if you're looking for mics, you can fast forward to the mic section, etc. But we're not actually going to have a packet for this one.
Okay, so let's get started. And any notes that I take on the iPad, I will make available on our website down the road if needed. Let's see.
Because I do have, if you go to our website, there's the live stream video tab or navigation spot. If you click on that, any live stream that had free PDFs, there's a little sign up. You just put in your email address, and it'll take you to the page that has a bunch of free PDFs on it. But that page also will have this video. I will usually post as soon as it's available, or or in the evening, so that it's easy to find if you don't want to try to search around on YouTube for it.
All right. So first off, again, the main thing today, we need to take our video signal, audio signal, and get it to the streaming platform. That's the meat and potato, right? That's the gist. Then we talk about all the small nuances and all the other options as we get closer, or as we kind of progress through this, because again, we're going to keep things as simple as possible. Try not to spend a ton of money if if we can help it. I'm trying to avoid the title of my most expensive friend that a lot of people have been giving me recently. So let's talk about first our main goals. So before we even start, the reason I have speed listed is whether or not you have great gear. If your internet speed is horrible, there's nothing, you're going to get choppy video, you're going to get audio that sounds distorted because it just gets logged up, or it does one of those things where it is silent and all of a sudden you hear everything at once. This is such an easy but important thing to think about. Download speeds are typically okay nowadays. It's the upload speed that's going to be the most important thing to kind of focus on when you are looking at upgrading your internet. Typically, a lot up until I think like 2 or 3 weeks ago, Jake Shibabakuro, a couple other people in in our Hawaii panel had we were averaging 5 megabytes a second uploading, which is really, really slow, especially if you have like kids or other people jumping on the Wi-Fi as well. So that was the first thing that was really needed to upgrade. So I tend, if you're streaming in 720, they say typically around 7 to 10 is going to be great. I like streaming in 1080. I like, it's just a personal clarity thing. I try to aim between 15 and 20 consistently. We are a bit overkill at the moment because of some of the mini-fest things that we were doing. I wanted to have a bigger buffer on things, especially because we're combining different streaming services with Skype and OBS and multiple Skype inputs as well. So to me, that was the most important thing to have. So I think now we average about 35 upload, which is fantastic. And because sometimes there are dips in service, right? And so you want to have a little bit of buffer, especially if you're doing a live stream. Let's do
Speedtest.net, right?
yeah, speedtest.net. Okay, perfect. Whenever you see choppy video or audio, I instantly just move on to the next video, because it's not enjoyable to watch things that just get choppy and whatnot. So to me, that's going to be your first thing. Get better internet. And you don't have to go overkill like we did, but again, try to get at least 10 to 15 is great for the upload speeds. So let's cross that off for now. So let's say we have Sarah here on the couch and she wants to live stream. There's all these different services, right? We can go to Facebook Live, we can go to YouTube, we can go to Instagram Live. I have so many things on my desk right now to showcase. Okay, so let's say Sarah has her phone. This is going to be one of the easiest setups, right? We're going to go straight from Sarah to the mic on the iPhone, and from the iPhone you can either go to YouTube, you can go to Facebook Live, you can go to Instagram, any of these platforms, and you're done. That's it. But there's limitations behind that. Yes, it is the simplest thing that you can do, but if you're thinking about the quality of video, if you're thinking about the quality of audio, this is where things can improve, like a lot of us have noticed and aren't happy with how we enjoy certain things. So at this point, you can get something like you can get something like a made for iPhone or portable little microphone. If I can get the cap off, like this guy. And he has a lightning cable or input, and it'll plug directly into your iPhone or iPad with the lightning, and you have an exponentially better microphone. This is great for people who travel, to do more on the road. Having that nice kind of boost in quality is extremely helpful. People have used this for podcasts as well. At this point, though, I am a little. I really wouldn't. I would look at other options first. The reason is, to me, there are things in this price range that are much more universal to be able to use, where this is strictly with just your iOS device or with Lightning, right? So that's the only way you could ever use this. To me, I'm going to break down a couple other options where that same monetary investment can get you equipment that can be used for multiple devices rather than just that one. But let's keep moving forward. So at this point, either your iPad, now let's say you have an iPad instead.
Real quick.
Yep.
What was the brand of that mic?
There was a Shure, I think MV88.
Shure MV88. Okay, I'll type that in the comments for Sue.
Okay. Now, let's say you have an iPad. The iPad Pros, especially now, have a little bit more options. All of a sudden, you can actually get a USB-C compatible mixer from like Guitar Center, Amazon, anything like that. And with that mixer, you can use like a high quality microphone. You can use a line in from your instrument. And from there, it actually hooks up straight to that port there. So there are other options. And even if without the iPad, if you have a laptop as well, same kind of deal. They can be used in both. So this is where I'm saying that, maybe the small made for iPhone thing isn't your best option if you have some of these other devices, because you can use more professional or just better gear to connect all of your different audio sources. This is especially if you have more than one person in frame that you want to showcase. And we'll definitely talk about the iPad setup, how I'm using it for this. But that to me is going to be your best bet moving forward. And let's talk about a couple reasons why that is. Whenever you have your iPhone, your iPad as your primary device, your microphone is going to be stuck to however far that is. And typically, we don't have the iPad, this close to your face, correct? So that means when it's that far away, even a whole arm length away, all of a sudden the microphone is struggling to get what is this far away, like from here. So the gain has to be brought up, which then will much more easily distort sound and pick up everything else in that area, compared to having it dialed in and close to my mouth. Or whenever you see live performances, the microphone is right there. It's not, 3 feet away, correct? I mean, there are some things that are built for that, but for the most case scenario, it's going to be really, really close. So whenever you get a chance to separate your audio source, your microphone, from your video, you're always going to have a lot more options to play with. So that is the first thing you should always consider. And not only that, most microphones in these iPhones and tablets are these tiny little things that they sound great for talking maybe a little bit, but for playing and singing and you know, really hearing the characteristics of your voice, nothing can really compare to using like a real microphone. And again, we're talking about audio right now. We're gonna dive into the video side next. Let me see, what part? USB-C. How is the USB-C new connector? Yes, USB-C is what the last 2 generations of the iPad Pros have currently. Yeah, it's fantastic for this kind of stuff. Sure, MV5 with cables and everything. Yeah, so to me, and Sarah can even hold up one of the USB mics that we'll kind of do a demo of later.
This one?
Yeah, so super cheap, like 50-60 bucks. But the biggest mistake that people make is they keep it like where their laptop is, you know, really far. And she'll do some samples on getting that.
Oh, do you want me to do that now?
No, take care of camera, please. So we'll do a couple of those examples a little bit later. But you can't charge iPad Pro at the same time. Is there a splitter, or there are hubs that you can use USB devices with on the iPad Pro, as well as charge it. But to me, you'd be hard pressed to use up the whole battery in one live session. I believe I think you could definitely handle at least a couple hours of live streaming with everything connected.
Is it time to do samples?
Sure.
Okay, I'm just gonna go set them in the bouncer.
Okay. All right. The iRig stuff is not bad, but one of the great things about the iRig that Mary is talking about is that with that in any kind of audio capture device that you can plug into the phone or the iPad, you can then connect like the mixer and have more support and again more channels. So there are ways to utilize that in ways that it wasn't officially made for, if that makes sense. Okay, so let's take it to Sarah for a quick mic sample.
All right. So, which mic would you like me to start with? Do you want me to start with the?
Just make sure you talk into the mic if you're talking though.
That's fine. Which mic do you want me to start with? Do you want me to start with the snowball, or do you want me to start with the one that's right here?
Let's end with the snowball.
Okay. So the mic that I am currently speaking into is a very nice studio mic.
Yep.
It is a Roswell Pro Audio. I believe it is
Is that mic even on?
Oh, I am so sorry. I had it muted. My apologies.
So start all over.
Okay, let me start all over for you. Okay, so the mic that I'm speaking into right now, this is an actual studio mic. This would be overkill for live streams. We would probably not use it for live streams. And this one, it is. Let me do this again.
One more time.
Oh, sorry.
Let's see. There you go.
So this is a Roswell Pro Audio Colaris mic. It's really awesome. Just the pure sound that comes out of it is really fantastic. So that's this one. And then so this will be one of the ones that I'm using. And then the next one that I will be using is going to be just your standard handheld one. And I'll do a sample of me singing something in a second. I'm just going to tell you what I'm using first. So that's this Roswell Pro Audio fancy, expensive studio mic. This is just your typical handheld Shure. What is this? This one's the Shure Beta 58A. And a lot of folks have mics like this already. They're great. They're very directional. So you've got to be right up on it. It's harder for it to be able to get a voice and your instrument. One thing I forgot to mention with this other mic that's next to me is that it is a condenser mic. It is incredibly sensitive. and it can pick up like everything, which is another reason we might not use it necessarily for live streams, especially if you have noisy neighbors. All right, so there's this one. Next up, we have this mic. Craig, I can't remember the name of this one. Can you tell me? Can you
Shure SM7B.
Yes, the Shure SM7B. This mic, a lot of you may recognize from podcasts. I feel like I am on NPR right now, and I've got some very special news to share with you whenever I see this mic. One thing about this one that I find a little scary is this particular wire. You've got to be really careful because if you squish it or something, your mic will no longer work. So you just need to be super, super careful. So that's this one. And then you also, for this particular mic, you're going to need something called a cloud lifter. And I'll pass this to you in just a second, Craigie. You'll need this thing here to help you be able to actually make it work. You can't just plug it right in, unfortunately. And Craig's going to demonstrate his deep voice.
So a lot of these mics are known for that deeper kind of proximity effect, or that really podcast voice. And yeah, the cloud lifter was something that we didn't know when we first bought it, but it's just one of the things that go hand in hand with this particular microphone because the level is so low that it needs a clean boost, which is like why the cloud lifters are so important. But this is just a quick sample for the male voices out there. I mean, this really does capture that, like, hi, I'm in a podcast room, and you know, that, that kind of thing. But yeah, let me switch back.
Okay. And then here, I'm just holding it far away right now. I have...
Okay, well, let me turn that mic on.
So here I have the Snowball, the blue Snowball mic. It comes with this stand, which is great, but you can also take the stand off and actually put it on a mic stand, just FYI. So that's having it super far away. As you hear it, I mean, it sounds all right. But if I bring it in close to my mouth, here it's a bit cleaner, and you can see that it actually sounds pretty good. Again, that's that whole proximity effect that Craig was talking about, where if you have the mic further out, it has to work a lot harder. Up close, this is actually not too bad. So now I'm going to actually do some singing tests. We're going to leave this one at the close-up setting so you can hear what it sounds like with me singing close up to it. But I'll start over with... Okay, I'll start with this one. Okay. I'll sing something that I always sing to Cameron. It's time to go to dreamland. It's time to go to sleep. It's time to go to dreamland, baby. It's time to go to sleep. That's the Snowball mic. Here we are with the Shure here. It's time to go to dreamland. It's time to go to sleep. It's time to go to dreamland, baby. It's time to go to sleep. We have our handheld here. It's time to go to dreamland. It's time to go to sleep. It's time to go to dreamland, baby. It's time to go to sleep. And then we have the studio mic, which I would typically have a pop screen on, but for now. It's time to go to dreamland. It's time to go to sleep. It's time to go to dreamland, baby. It's time to go to sleep. So those are all various price ranges for you. So this is the most expensive. I think the next runner up would be this one, followed by this one, followed by the Snowball as far as most expensive, semi, but not super expensive, not too bad, and then the Snowball, which is going to be one of the cheaper options.
Yeah, and for the one in front of me is one of these guys, another Roswell Pro Audio. This is the Mini K47. Incredible little mics that do really well for both instruments and vocals. It doesn't have that same presence as the Colaris that Sarah has in front of her. But our next big studio album will be using these mics. They're just incredible with the Colaris as well.
Yeah.
As some of you have mentioned in the chat, the Shure SM7B is a fantastic mic as well. I'm so glad Neil got it. There is a little bit of darkness that it adds to it, which sometimes does play really nicely with an ukulele because it kind of brings it more down to that mid-range mellow feeling. So there are good things and bad things about some of the decisions you make, and you know, the hard thing is, you know, we can't always just try out mics to try kind of like ukulele. We can't try out all the ukuleles and then pick our favorites just because, you know, we can't afford to, and there's no like rentals. Is there a rental ukulele service?
That would be amazing.
Oh
And
my gosh.
I just wanted to mention, so people are asking about prices. So this particular mic, the Colaris, I believe is around $1,260, somewhere around there, right, is this one. And you can get even more expensive studio mics than this. And then if I remember correctly, this mic was this $500 or was it $400? And then the cloud lifter
I think
made
it's like
it $500.
$399 and the cloud lifter is like $100 or $150.
Right. So this mic, if you get, including the cloud lifter, it'll be around $500 for this setup. How much was this Shure? I bought it a million years ago.
Like $89, I think, on sale typically.
Okay.
$89.99 around there.
$89. And then the blue Snowball, if I remember right, was only like $30 or $40. So that's your sort of prices. And I'll try to type up, maybe we can just add it in the comments, the names of these mics for you guys. That way you just have the list. And in the description, that's what I meant to say. Once this is recorded, we'll write the description of the mics that we used.
Yeah, we'll have that all listed out for you. So,
Yeah.
you know, my main thing is for me, it's all about the interface first. If you can get a decent interface or a mixer that can be utilized from your devices, again, you have more options with a laptop compared to like a mobile device like an iPad or iPhone. But again, there are some things that play nicely with that USB-C port on the iPad Pros. I'm hesitant to say there might be some options for even the older or the non-Pro iPads with a Lightning to USB, and then from the USB to some of the mixers. You have to do some research because I haven't been able to keep tabs on everything because at the moment everyone is scrambling to make their things compatible with everything, right? So there's been some firmware updates, there's been some changes to some of the devices to make everything more accessible, but you definitely want to do as much research as you can once you find kind of a general idea of where you want to go. But a decent interface means that you can use better mics down the road that you can always upgrade to. You can find some great used gear as well. You don't have to always buy new. And also being able to plug right in if you have a preamp in your or a pickup in your ukulele, but it just gives you a lot more options.
And one thing I wanted to add that, and everybody's saying, oh my gosh, the studio mic sounds amazing. But remember, if you live in an apartment, you are at the mercy of your neighbors because this mic will pick up everything. The garbage disposal they run upstairs, their washing machines, etc. So it's amazing, but it's an incredibly sensitive mic, which is why you might end up wanting something that may not necessarily sound as crisp and clean, or you just may want to go a different route for a mic that doesn't pick up absolutely everything.
Okay, now I'm gonna do a quick. So someone's been asking about interface. Uh, Sarah, could you lift up yours for just a second? So Sarah's mics are plugged into a Bose T1 tone match mixer, and I'm receiving that via one channel into. Let me see if I can get this working really quick. Into my audio interface here. That's going into my computer. Or is it video capture? Sure. Oh, it helps if I turned on the thing.
Oh my goodness. So you guys can't hear it, I don't think, but Cameron is bouncing like mad in the other room.
Okay, let's see. So actually, I can do this, and that's plugged in. So I'll go switch to camera 3. So this is the interface that we're currently using from. I'm taking all of Sarah's mics into one input channel. This is also taking my current microphone, and then it is leading into the main computer here. Now this is again way overkill than what most people would ever need. But this is the guy that's controlling all of our video sources. Has been one of the best purchases we've ever made.
It is awesome.
This is our external view to show the different cameras lined up, so I can see a preview before I switch cameras. This is my main thing that I'm looking at. I have OBS open here. With you can see the mixing board via OBS here and all the different kind of presets. My main camera is up here. I have the chat open so I can see. I have a preview of the live stream. I have the console app open for the universal audio signal so I can keep track of levels very carefully. I have the ATEM software control open so I can quickly switch like my picture-in-picture and all of that kind of good stuff. So there are, I mean, again, if I'm just doing a basic workshop, I don't need all the bells and whistles. But if I want to have, like, you know, again, like the iPad set up to do chord charts and do live, you know, things at once, that is possible via OBS. It's just, I have the iPad plugged into the computer via USB. OBS will see it as a video source, and I can, from here, it's so easy to control. I can...
And I love people are saying it looks like NASA.
Yes, I can make the windows bigger or smaller.
Mm-hmm.
It really is so incredibly easy to use. And OBS, again, is free, absolutely free.
Woohoo! And so I'm going to have to run off because somebody is going to need to take a nap, I am afraid. But I hopefully will be able to come back and join in again once he's settled and down for his nap. But you might even be able to hear him fussing a little bit. He is in a different room, and that is just how, because people were saying you could hear him in his bouncer. That's how sensitive this mic is. So again, if you live somewhere noisy, this may not be your best option for doing live streaming.
Okay, so make sure you turn your mic and video off then. Now, so I'm gonna do just a quick overview on cameras, and then I'm gonna invite our very special guests to join us to chat even more about their setup, their things that they've learned over the past few months. Ben Hassinger, the Mini Pro has that the output to actually see the preview. The original Mini does not, and that was the biggest difference for upgrading, especially when we have a bunch of video sources set up. Now, my quick breakdown on cameras. Well, are you using special cables perhaps for the Mist? We're not really using special cables at all, just random XLR cables and whatnot. So cameras, light, and more light. Expensive cameras love light. Medium cameras love light. Inexpensive cameras crave light. All right, iPhones, iPads, the more light, the better. I cannot stress this enough. A lot of people, say, oh, I don't like how, everything looks. It's always so dark. Get more light in front of you. I promise you, you can take iPhone cameras and make them look so professional by controlling that light. And actually, I'm going to do a quick sample here. Okay, so right now in front of me, I'm going to go back to this camera once more. To my left, to my right, I only have one light in front of me. But the reason why it's working so well is because I'm bouncing it off of the wall that's, like 3 feet away from me. And I'm using that to further kind of smooth things out to make it a little bit softer. If I had it straight up on me, it would be okay, but it wouldn't be as diffused. You can use this idea even with, I used before in another example, just your typical bedside lamp, and I bounced it off the wall to get that same effect. There's so many incredible things that you can do with, again, gear that you already have. You just have to be a little bit more creative. But again, even with just that one light, I can get enough light on me and in front of my uke. I can pump it up even more, but again, it's about the light that you can get on you. Again, everything in my background is relatively dark. We have the windows boarded up and whatnot, or curtained up, I should say, because again, the more light behind you is going to be very, very distracting and harsh on the eyes when you're trying to focus on what's in the middle. And even for this, I could adjust it maybe one stop brighter. That looks pretty good. So to me, the first thing you should always do if you're thinking about getting better video is start experimenting more with light. Again, you can take a $12, $5 lamp and try to bounce it. Light boxes are great. Yeah. Again, this own softbox here, but I'm getting that extra diffusion. I'm also getting that spread a little bit more compared to a light that's just like this. Bouncing off the wall, everything kind of gets pushed a little bit wider. So that's my first big thing about any kind of camera setup is focus on light first. Even with your built-in cameras, with your iPads or with your iMacs or other tablets, I typically tell people raise it up just a hair. Especially for the tablets and the phone cameras, everything feels very tight because it's not a very wide angle. And a lot of times you cannot see both your face and your instrument. But raising it up and then angling down, not only can you see more in frame that way, but it's typically a little bit more flattering shooting down just a hair. That's always going to be your best bet. So as we talked about before too, if you're using the microphone on your tablet or iPhone as on the desk, in front of you down here, it's going to pick up way more of your instrument than your vocals. And of course, your vocals are the best. You want your vocals to be on top of your ukulele, not the other way around. You don't want to hear the majority of your ukulele and you're having to fight with your vocals to even hear it. So that helps if you're just running from that one device as well. Just get it up a little bit more. Think about, again, the mic placement, as well as that camera angle now being a little bit more flattering from that top. Framing, again, we are limited in the space we have right now, but always think about what's in frame. Try to be deliberate. So again, you don't have like a bunch of light sources in the corner that are distracting. So the different cameras, again, that you can start looking into. We have the built-ins, which is your iPad, iPhone, those kind of cameras. Your webcams, which are like these guys, which range from about $50 to 120. Fantastic buys for streaming. We've used this for like 4 or 5 years. USB, and they're great. There's nothing wrong. Again, the more light, the better. But they're so head and shoulders above the built-in cameras in your devices. Then we have cameras with a clean HDMI out. What that means is I'm taking the signal from my mirrorless Canon camera. I'm taking its HDMI source or cable, and then I'm going into the switcher, which then makes it look like a webcam. Back in the day, we used to use these little devices here, which are HDMI capture devices. The Cam Link will run you about $120, but it takes the HDMI signal and again makes it look like a USB webcam. These were sold out for a solid like 4 months or so. We actually gave a couple away to friends who needed this, but this was really great, especially for 1 or 2 camera setups. Once you had more than 2 in there, it started to kind of maximize what the computer could handle. So that's why we ended up going with a switcher to take some of that load off. There are cheap alternatives I'll put in the list as well after we're done. This was $30 on Amazon that does the same thing. There's a little bit of quality loss, but for the most part, these were absolutely fantastic. There are some questions. Oh, and the big thing to remember though is that not all cameras have what they call a clean HDMI out. And this is a total ripoff by a lot of the manufacturers, but a lot of times they'll keep some information on that HDMI out in order to encourage you to upgrade to their more expensive cameras. So you have to do some research on a particular camera to see if it has a quote unquote clean HDMI out to make sure that you get a clean signal going from the HDMI into any of these captured devices. The sticks are the Elgato Cam Links, and then this made in China brand that I'll put a link up after we're said and done. Well, actually, I'll put links up once I get my guests in. Is your camera in record mode? So my camera is just on the video kind of standby mode. It's not recording, it's not doing it, it's just pushing out a signal. I actually have the LED screen off at the moment from the camera itself. So it's just reading that signal through the HDMI. And I wouldn't necessarily say you need an LED light box, but even just a soft box for a couple of those bigger bulbs would be fantastic. Anything to help diffuse that. Yes, natural light is always best. Yeah, so the reason why most like handheld cameras like DSLRs or mirrorless cameras, the reason why there's a limit on 29 minutes of recording, supposedly I think, is that if they are able to record more than that in a chunk, they're then classified as camcorders or video cameras, which then have a higher tax percentage, which is why almost every single of these cameras have that cutoff time. There are some cameras I know that just pay it to the license or whatever it is to keep that going, but that was, I think, the main reason why there is that time limit. All right, so I'm going to come back to this, but I'm going to invite some friends to talk about their experiences and their amazing events and gear as well. I do have, this camera has an AC battery that's connected to the wall, and the one behind me for Sarah, it just has the regular battery in it. You mentioned teleprinter? What is it? Oh, so Teco, the Cam Link. So most cameras you can't just plug in via USB to get a signal. There are some, the Canon just had a webcam beta utility that's out there, but the quality is not even close to what these HDMI captures can do. So that's the biggest difference between the Camlink and just the cable, is that most cameras, you can't just plug a camera into the computer and receive a video signal from that. Okay, let me pull up Skype. Now, Diane and Adrian have been doing live streams almost like every week, I feel like. It's been incredible, and they've been going through a lot of different setups as well. Aloha. Oh, I have you there. I have you. How do I? Hi. I have to pull up a NDI thing on OBS real quick. And then, boom. And then...
Let us know if you've got hearing any.
Yeah, we've got
a little bit of that phasing thing that happens.
We can turn you down, or we can also wear headphones. We've got them ready if you prefer us to have headphones.
Let's try that for now. Let's try this. But hi, you guys are live.
Well, turn
him down a bit, yeah.
Oh.
Is that better? Turn it down even more, maybe? How's that, Craig?
Sounds good.
Let us know if you get too much echo, and we can move to headphones.
Okay. I think I'm gonna do this. I'll go right above you. Perfect. Welcome, Diane and Adrian. I always
Hi, Craig and Sarah.
people that like Adrian is my Australian Canadian brother.
I love it.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I brought them down a bit. I think levels are good. How's everything sounding and looking out there, everyone?
Hi, everybody. I've been interacting in the chat under the name Ukulele for Jazz Singers, by the way, just because I know we're doing our event together tomorrow under that name, so I thought it would be less confusing if I did that. But that was me, in case you guys were wondering, who's that girl who's answering all these tech questions? Craig did ask us to answer some if we could in the chat.
Yeah, so welcome. And again, how you guys have been doing so much during this crazy time as well. Where do you even start? How did you even start, and what were some of the biggest challenges putting everything together?
Well, we started because, when the lockdown started, we started to hear on the radio about how much the Ottawa Food Bank was in dire need, and people were losing work, and just a lot of people were suddenly relying on food banks. And so we thought, what can we do? We were in a situation where we were also confined to home, and Adrian, who runs the Ottawa Jazz Orchestra, the rest of this orchestra's season was canceled at the National Arts Centre. So we were like, how can we stay in touch and still continue to connect and do shows and help raise money? And so we thought, let's try a live stream. And we had never live streamed before, but we did a concert on my personal channel, Diane Nalini, on YouTube, and it was really fun. Like, we got with the CBC, which is the local public broadcaster, supported us, and so we had a lot of people. We had like thousands of people watching our very, very first live stream. And when you think about that, the chutzpah, the hubris involved, is like, in hindsight, it's like, I can't believe we tried that, where we had never live streamed before, and we just thought we would do this massive public concert. And what was interesting about that was, even though we did multiple tests with volunteer friends on YouTube. You can do an unlisted stream and share the link with just those people you want to. And we did 2 full-hour tests, and including recording into YouTube and testing all sorts of things. And in spite of all that, and even though we felt we had troubleshooted everything, a number of things went wrong during that first live stream. Stuff always happens. We lost video, and then we got it back. We lost audio, and we got it back. And what was awesome was people still hung in there with us, and we were so grateful for that. But it's just fascinating. Things always happen, unexpected things. Even this morning, we were having issues where we were losing the connection. Everything is fixed now. We touch wood when we say that, but and we've done something like 14 or 15 live stream concerts. So we've got it down to like a well-oiled machine, but still things can always happen.
Yeah, I mean, that's the importance of testing. Even So I have my gear actually downstairs in my studio, and I brought it up for us to do this today, and something was happening. One of my network hubs was going crazy, and the switch of the ATEM Mini was losing the connection all the time. And yesterday I was teaching, I was live streaming downstairs, and I forgot to put the AC adapter, which we were just talking about in the chat, in the camera. So the camera was running on battery, and in the middle of the stream, the camera died.
Oh, no.
And so I realized what it was, and I quickly went and fixed it up. But
Yeah.
it's always stuff that happens.
The same thing happened. Yeah.
It's really important to test before you go
Yeah.
online.
Yeah, the same thing happened to us for that very first live stream we did for the fundraiser for the food bank. I had been powering, because I was before we bought a mixer, I was using my Zoom H6n to mix our audio, and that's a good little unit, but it has a few quirks, and one quirk is that if you power it from like the DC adapter that comes with it and power it through the USB connector, it can have some ground issues and it can make funny buzzing. So a good way to get around that is to power it actually as an interface from your computer. So it acts as both an audio interface if you want to record into something like Logic or Pro Tools or GarageBand. And it also gets power from your computer, and then that eliminates this whole grounding issue thing. But what happened during our live stream at one point was I hadn't realized that my power cable, my DC cable, had pulled out of the laptop, and and in the middle, we were playing, and we lost audio because my computer just switched off and therefore stopped powering the Zoom H6. And so then the question becomes: you're in the moment, you're performing, you're live, you can see people in the chat saying, "We can't hear you." And in the process of all that, you have to try and keep a level head and start being methodical and say, okay, what could be going wrong? In this case, I went over to the computer and I realized, oh, power cable's unplugged, so I could quickly plug it back in again. But sometimes the thing that has happened that has gone wrong is not quite so straightforward to troubleshoot. And so one of the things that we've developed for ourselves in terms of workstream is I just take care of the audio side of everything. Adrian takes care of all the video side and the streaming side, and we kind of divide our tasks up. And because there are quite a few things to think about on each side of those aspects of streaming, I find that quite helpful. So I've got my own internal checklist. So we use both dynamic mics and a condenser, not a condenser, but a DI for the bass pickup, which requires phantom power. So, that's one thing you have to remember. Oh, don't forget to switch on the phantom power for his side of the audio, otherwise you won't get sound. So when something's going wrong, you need to sort of have that checklist in your head of all the things to troubleshoot and go through your list systematically to try to figure out. And that's where the testing and the practicing comes in.
Well, and I think one of the things too is that like the more stuff you have, the more sophisticated it is, the more complex it is, the more possibilities.
Yeah.
The possibilities that something is going to go wrong.
Yeah, for sure.
So, yeah,
simpler is always better. We have had to increase some of the complexity in our weekly streams, but we've only done so incrementally as and when needed. So, for example, I was pretty happy with the audio that we were getting from the Zoom H6, which is a 6-track recorder. It's not really designed to be a mixer,
for those
but
who
it can
are
act as a mixer.
Interested in that is this guy here.
Yeah, I brought one with me. Show and tell.
They are incredible. I mean, I love this because you can have different mic capsules, as well as interchange them with the smaller, more portable F1. And we take this on the road with us every single time we travel, just to have a nice kind of audio capture device that we can put on stage to capture B-roll stuff, or at festivals just to get some of the crowd shots and everything and get some nice audio from that. But yeah, they're fantastic devices that, like you said, are great because they can double up as audio interfaces.
Yeah, and what's great is you can record to the SD card in here and to the audio interface. You can end while it is acting as an audio interface. But the only thing, what I was going to say about this was, what's also great is you can individually, there are 4 inputs here, and you can input either XLR, which is the microphone cable that's used for microphones and other instruments, or 1/4-inch jack, which is typically what will come out of a ukulele under like the pickup, the piezoelectric pickup. But one of the great things I like about this is you can individually decide to apply phantom power or not to each channel. So if one mic needs phantom and one does not, you're not applying it universally as all or nothing, because phantom can also cause some increased signal noise if you're using it on a device that doesn't need it. And in fact, if you're applying it to a ribbon microphone, you can actually blow your microphone and damage it permanently. So I really like that. The one limitation of this, though, is it does not have effects. So if you need, if you want reverb, it has limited EQ and compression that I would say is brute force compression. I don't really like the compressors on here. They are too much. There's too much, so it's all or nothing. And when you use the compressors here, your noise floor goes way up. And so that was one of the limitations that we were finding, was even though we were liking using this, we couldn't get any reverb or any kind of sophisticated EQing, and that was why we decided to move away from this and move to a mixer board.
Awesome. And because of your incredible background in your singing career, you must have used hundreds of different microphones. Would you mind giving us a quick breakdown on some of the microphones you've tried, things that don't work well with your voice and things that do work well with your voice, just to kind of run the gamut for a second?
Sure. And I think one of the things one of the things that I should emphasize is that price is not, when it comes to actual recording microphones, price is not necessarily going to be the determining factor. It's really important to test for an individual singer or performer, to test the microphone for his or her needs. So for example, I just recorded my 5th album last year, and when I went into the studio, it was a well-equipped studio. There were some beautiful Neumann, those classic Neumann condenser vocal mics, which are way too expensive for me to own, but which I would gladly use in a studio that possesses them. And the engineer did say to me, he said, well, would you like to try other mics? And I was like, of course. I always A/B test. When I go into a studio, I ask to test at least 2, maybe 3 mics. And I send the previous albums to the engineer so that the engineer knows what kind of sound I'm looking for in the general approach and the mix, but also the sound of my voice. And this engineer I was working with last time came up, thought, okay, we'll try these 2 Neumanns, but he also, for the studio, brought the SM7B, the one that you were showing, Craig. They call it the Michael Jackson, the Thriller mic, because Michael Jackson recorded the vocals for Thriller on that microphone. And what's interesting is that that's a $500 something around those lines microphone, and he was proposing it to me alongside these $4,000 or $5,000 microphones, and it sounded really good. And he said to me, I know it's a little bit of an unconventional approach, but maybe you want to try this in the studio and see, because I think it would go well with your vocals. And I really liked it. We tested. What I usually do is I'll sing the exact same thing through all the different mics and then listen back. And in this case, I loved the sound of it, but it made my voice a bit darker than I wanted to sound, and I just felt it wasn't quite true to what I hear myself sounding like. But it still was a very good mic, and I was super impressed that a mic of that cost could stand up reasonably well against the Neumanns. In terms of what I use at home for our home recording, when we are not live streaming, if we are recording something for one of our collaboration videos, we will try our best to use condenser mics. And the reason a condenser mic is better, in my opinion, is it's usually got a broader frequency response, because condensers are not attached to a coil, a magnetic moving part that weighs them down. They have they have better sensitivity at higher frequencies. Excuse me. And so you get that clarity with a condenser mic. The flip side of that is, as you guys were already discussing, you get everything. You get the fridge, you get the air conditioner in the other room, you get everything. And we live in an apartment building, and people just randomly drop things on the floor. There's drilling happening outside. And so what we'll do is, if we're not live, we will record with a condenser, and then if something happens and interrupts us and we get sound, then unfortunately that means that take is ruined and we have to start again. So then at that point you have to start weighing the value of having that better audio quality against the trouble of having to keep redoing takes in case your neighbor flushes their toilet or something like that. Our walls are not quite that thin, but you know what I'm talking about, right? And so when we record at home, I have a very humble condenser mic. It's like an Audio Technica 2030, I think. I can't quite remember. There's no point having a very, very expensive mic, because the more expensive they are, generally, the more sensitive they are to ambient noise. And so those Neumanns we were talking about, they're great in a soundproofed room or an anechoic chamber or something like that. And they are complete overkill in an environment where you have a lot of ambient noise. So those are the types of cost level of the condensers that we use at home, would be in the $200 to $300 range. And when we live stream, we use these guys. And this is an SM58 beta, which Sarah was holding up earlier. And you've got an old style SM58, the non-beta one. This is the one I started gigging with years ago, several decades ago. And I've had that same mic. You can throw it at the wall and it will survive. They are like robust, the those old standards. And you'll find them at every jazz festival around the world, any outdoor gig. These are the mics that are used. They're very robust. They have a very narrow pickup pattern compared to a condenser mic, which will pick up spatially. Even a cardioid pickup pattern, which is supposed to be more forward bearing for a condenser, usually they'll pick up a broader pickup pattern. These guys, if you're close in, you can really overpower the background noise, which is great. And so when we live stream, I sing through this, because then if there is drilling outside, there's a lot less probability that it's going to get picked up when we perform. And I'm also plugged in. So for playing the uke, I've got my uke. I'm not using a microphone on this uke because, again, that would pick up too much ambient noise in our apartment. So I've got an LR Bags under saddle pickup here, and I'm plugged into my through a 1/4-inch jack, and that's going into a separate channel in the board. And in order to make up for the fact that it is a purely electric sound, I do add a little bit of reverb, like not too much. In fact, I can't remember if I've got any. I might have turned it off because we were recording with you for our collaboration with you guys. So, and I didn't want to have reverb baked into the track, so I would add it later. But anyway, it sounds, and it allows me to control the sound from the board and just turn the uke up or down independently. There will be some uke picked up in the dynamic mic, but very little. So if you want me to demo that, let me just do it here now like this. And now I will mute. I think they should be muted now, and now you'll see how much is picked up in the mic. So hopefully you can see the difference between the uke coming through the board and the uke, what's bleeding in from the uke into my mic. I don't know if that was clear, Craig, or if you want me to play that again.
No, that was actually very distinct. Yeah, that was great.
What's the what effects do you have on the uke?
Let me just check. Hold on.
There's probably some reverb.
Yep.
Some reverb.
Some reverb. Some EQing to get rid of really clangy. Like, I tend to want more of a jazz guitar sound on the uke, so I take out some of the high EQ so that it's not too twangy up there, so it has a more kind of like mid sound, like that. That's what I like for my uke, and so I can EQ the instrument that way as well.
Yeah, so with the mixer, we can individually EQ things, and then the other thing is we actually have all of the audio before it goes into the Blackmagic, the switcher, or actually when it goes into Blackmagic switcher, we have some compression on there as well to compress the whole thing.
Yeah, compression we're finding is a big deal when it comes to live streaming, because sometimes the outputs are just not strong enough, and then you have people. What we ideally aim for is that we should be able to have the volume on the middle point when we're listening back on our computer or our iPad or whatever. We should have a decently good sound when the volume is kind of halfway up. If you're finding you have to crank the volume all the way up to 100% or 90% to get even just if somebody's listening to your live stream after the fact and then they switch to another video and they've already amped up their volume to hear you, then something else comes on, it's going to deafen them, and it's going to be really unpleasant. And for people who monetize their videos, the ads are going to be super loud compared to the audio on your video. So it's important to have that as much clean gain as possible when you're going in. And we've certainly found we've live streamed to both YouTube and Facebook.
The audio quality is much better on YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of people, or a few people, are asking in the chat about like mixers and what kind of mixer and so forth. And I think one of the things that's most important is the noise, like the quality of the sound that you're getting through the mixer, right? So you want like mic preamps that are really, really clean and quiet. That's the ideal thing, because there's a lot of ways to introduce sound into the whole audio chain. And then the other thing that happens too often, if you have a lot of like equipment like computers and so forth that have fan noise, that's another reason why you want to use the dynamic mics that Diane was talking about, because the condensers are going to pick up everything. And even right now, I mean, I can hear like there's air conditioners going, around us. And
yeah, not ours. We turned ours off, but our neighbors have air conditioners.
No, but we still, I mean, we have like right next to me here, there's computers there with fans and so forth. And so we don't, we're using dynamic mics so that stuff doesn't get picked up.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Sometimes when I'm teaching on Zoom, I teach ukulele workshops on Zoom, and sometimes by the end, I'm using a laptop that's an older laptop. It's an older MacBook Pro, and by the end of the hour, my MacBook has become so hot that I have to put it in the fridge for 5 minutes to cool it down, because the fan is just going like this, and that's why I teach with this, because I don't want the fan noise to be picked up. I don't want students to hear the fan of the computer, but it is having trouble with. I think anytime you're doing, whether it's live streaming or just a Zoom meeting or Skype, anytime that your video is being processed by the computer, it's going to make your CPU and your fan work harder, and your graphics card and everything.
Now, there was a great question from Tom in the chat about, I'm assuming he means audio sample rates. I typically send audio at 48 kilohertz just to be sure it matches with video, because that's your standard for video. Yep. Audio is 48. So for me, I'm always, anything that I can change, it will always be at 48 for me. What about you guys?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what we do too.
Yeah, I mean, one thing to bear in mind too is that like the bit rate. Like if you're going through OBS, you can actually specify like the audio bit rate that gets sent. But it's important to sort of look up the platform that you're streaming to. Like YouTube, for example, the maximum audio bit rate that they will actually take or use is 160 kilobits per second, right? So there's not much point sending any more than that.
And there are differences as well between YouTube and Facebook in terms of the stream quality, the maximum stream quality that you can achieve. So I think with YouTube, anybody can stream at 1080p, which is like the standard for high definition. But with Facebook, it tends to be 720. Yeah. And so what we found, we did a couple of concerts, not by our choice, but we were hired to give concerts for a concert series that was streaming on Facebook. So we did it. And but we were streaming at 1080, and we thought, okay, well, maybe even if it's not streaming at 1080 in real time during the stream, maybe it's downgrading it to 720, but maybe the archival version will be available at 1080. But no, we did not find that. And so we were a bit, from a video quality perspective, we were a bit disappointed that we couldn't maintain that higher video quality on Facebook. And Facebook does funny things to the audio as well. A friend of ours who's the stage manager at the National Arts Center warned us for Facebook to always leave some headroom. Like, how normally if you are looking at your audio levels, you will optimize so that you're maybe hitting to minus 6 dB and trying not to go any further than that. He warned us that for Facebook, you had to be leaving even more headroom in the audio, because Facebook is doing some extra compression.
A lot of compression. And apparently they also even sum the stereo to mono as well sometimes. I'm not sure exactly why. I just want to say one thing. So we were just talking in the chat a little bit about like the fan noise and so forth, right? And so one thing, if you actually just look over here, you'll see that I've actually got like laptop coolers. These are just like, they're pretty cheap. You can get off Amazon. So I've got like the MacBook on the left is on one of those laptop coolers, and actually at the back there, the Blackmagic is also, the switcher is also on a laptop cooler as well.
So now, is that just fan based?
Yeah. Sorry, is it fan? Yes, it's just fan based. But you can put it, you can change the level of it so it's actually pretty quiet. So you're getting some cooling. So that way, like my MacBook is pretty cool, and my Blackmagic, the switcher, is pretty cool. And as you know, like the MacBooks, like they're terrible, right? Like when they get hot, and if it's doing any kind of graphic stuff, the fan can just go crazy.
Do you want to show them the mixer as well? With your little camera, he's got his phone set up on a switch. He's got his phone activated as the switcher.
So actually I have a camera. I'm just using my phone camera here, but yeah, I mean this is like our sort of setup right now, just for doing this little thing with you guys on this stream. Is I basically have one computer here that's connected, the MacBook that's connected to the Blackmagic at the back here. And then we have the other computer here that's just being used for Skype.
And can you show my mixer? So we're also going to just show you what our mixer looks like, and that's what we've got set up. Now this again would be overkill for most people. It's a 12-track mixer, and we certainly don't have 12 tracks. The reason I got this was because I wanted the ability to separately apply Phantom to certain tracks and not have it on other tracks. And most mixers, it's all or nothing. You either have 48 volts Phantom power applied to all the tracks, or you don't. And because Adrian's bass pickups, he's got a DPA microphone, which is a microphone that typically like violinists and bassists will use, and mandolin players, and he's also got a pickup. And because of that, you can stop it now. Okay, and because of that, he board recorder on here. I get the tracks recorded multi-track onto an SD card, and then it also has a USB out that will send all 12 tracks to Logic or Pro Tools or whatever you're using, and you can do both of those simultaneously, and that can be really handy because, like I said, sometimes my laptop overheats when we're recording, and I don't want to have a laptop involved so that we don't have the fan noise. And therefore, the fact that this thing is a standalone recorder means I'll just record when we're doing our collaborations with other musicians. We want as much minimal background noise as possible. We'll just record into the recorder and then take it out of the SD card and mix it later. So I do like the fact that I have that flexibility when I'm trying to do something quick and dirty and I don't really want to deal with the SD card. I can just send the audio straight to the computer, but also have the flexibility of recording.
So there's another thing that I think is an interesting point to discuss, and that's sort of like using hardware versus software to do some of these things. So for example, some people are asking what's the difference between the Blackmagic, the ATEM Mini and the ATEM Mini Pro, and one of the differences is that the Mini Pro has a streaming engine in it. So I think that's actually like one of the ways that our setup is different from Craig and Sarah's setup, right? Because you guys, Craig and Sarah, are using OBS to do the streaming. We're actually using the Blackmagic to do the streaming. And I personally prefer, and actually I'm a software guy, like I was a software developer for many years, but I personally prefer to run the hardware because I feel it's more reliable, right? Like often, and I've had OBS crash on me before, and so that to me is like a nightmare that we could be in the middle of streaming, and I mean, it's not that hardware can't crash as well, but I feel better. And so like people were asking about mixes and so forth and audio interfaces too. I mean, that's the other thing is some of the audio interfaces, they don't have any effects or anything, but they do some of it in software. And if you're doing it in software, again, there's like the possibility that things might go wrong. And also, if you don't have a powerful enough computer, that's another thing. If you're trying to run OBS on a really wimpy computer, things may not go so well.
Yeah.
When we first tried live streaming, we were going to use OBS on my laptop, the same one that I was telling you I have to put in the fridge sometimes. And we tried it, and my MacBook is a 2017 or 2017 MacBook Pro, I think. But basically, we were having problems, and OBS kept dropping frames. And I thought maybe it's my CPU, maybe I don't have enough RAM. And we were trying to figure out what is the limiting factor on my laptop. Why are we not able to stream properly? And we realized that it was my graphics card that was not good enough. And so it's always good to make sure before anybody invests in a ton of equipment. Like if you plan to use OBS, you want to make sure that the equipment that you're using that's going to support that software is up to the task. And in my case, it wasn't. And it's just good that you have a better laptop. And we ended up using your iMac for a while as well. But you were saying that PCs tend to have better graphics card than
Yeah, I mean
than
they're
Apple. Is
sort of
that right?
easier to configure in
Oh,
that way. You
okay.
can often just replace, like if it's like a desktop PC, you can often just replace the graphics card.
Yeah, Apple has made it
Yeah.
harder
Yeah, I
and
mean,
harder to configure anything nowadays.
yes.
And there is that Apple tax, and you know, you talk about the fans going on and how it burns into your thighs. It's just that's just the Apple tax that we pay to.
The Apple tax. I hadn't heard of it referred to that way before, Craig. I like that.
Yeah, I mean,
I like
one
that.
thing that I've found interesting is it's very hard. It's very hard to actually find fanless computers now, right? Like everything, most of the machines have fans, and that little MacBook I have, that 12-inch MacBook, that they don't make that anymore, and that doesn't have a fan in it, so it's completely silent, right? And I have a Chromebook right here, and this is completely silent, doesn't have a fan in it. But the MacBook, the powerful MacBook, which we're
Yeah.
running with Skype through, and we're doing that for a reason, because if I try to run Skype on the wimpier MacBook, it might not handle the feed so well. And
Yeah.
also, you know, we have the MacBook as a backup too, so we can stream through OBS through that if something goes wrong with the Blackmagic switcher. But the problem with that thing is, yeah, I mean, it gets really hot and the fan is loud.
Well, sometimes we actually put, when we're live streaming for an actual concert, we put that the bigger MacBook that makes where the fan gets worry. We actually put it in our kitchen. We have a little kitchenette. We're in an apartment, and so we put it around the corner and close the door so that it's doing its work, but it's not getting picked up in our microphones. And we also have to switch off our fridge when we live stream. We switch it off. I mean, we unplug it. We unplug the fridge. We turn off our air con. We put our phones on silent. Like, we get rid of as much background noise as possible. And the hilarious thing is, many times we forget to turn our fridge back on after we're done. And so we'll go an hour later and we'll go into the fridge and go, oh my God, the light's off. We've forgotten to turn the fridge back on. So sometimes you have to make sure you put a reminder to yourself. Otherwise, your food will be a casualty from the,
Now,
from the live
before we
stream.
geek out even more, I do want to remind people the biggest takeaway at the moment is thinking of placement. You know, whether it's your iPhone using that speaker or that microphone, getting it closer to your mouth compared to your ukulele, getting it closer. If you can have a separate microphone
Yes.
closer to you, that's always going to be the biggest change in your audio quality, bar none. That's the main thing to start thinking about. So even the USB microphones are incredibly versatile. Just think about placement. You have to get things closer to you, so that you don't pick up everything and your next door neighbor and garbage trucks in the background.
That is such a good message, Craig. That's exactly right. And you will sound better using a very cheap and humble microphone that is placed closer to you, which is then connected to your iPhone that you place at the appropriate distance to get the image that you want. You'll sound better with that configuration than using a very expensive condenser mic, but which is placed too far away
Yeah.
from you, and then it's just picking up everything.
Yeah, and again, like Diane mentioned too, going through your iPhone to everything else makes it seamless and easy. But again, you have more options if you want to play with things like Adrian has been doing a lot of graphic inlays on the live streams recently, on the fly, things like that. But if you want more control, OBS or having like the ATM Mini Pro, those kind of things will give you the ability to add more content to your streams. But again, it does get more and more complicated, and it does get more hectic. And I give you guys credit, because for me, I don't think we could separate Sarah doing audio and me doing video, because I like to make sure I know that everything in my chain is working and connected, instead of like, Sarah, is this da 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 da, and then double checking it.
Well, no, don't worry. We have those discussions as well. Right?
That's right. That's why it's important
You
to
just
say.
have one job to do. One job. Give me the audio.
Hey! Oh, it's like it's not always the audio that's the issue.
Oh,
Mr.
no.
He's never said that. That's right. No, but you know what? It is true that the sooner, when you're on the day of the live stream, I would say the biggest advice I would give is, first of all, test, test and test some more. Don't wait until the day of your live stream to do the testing. Test the day before, test the week before. You can set up an unlisted private stream that will be your test bed, and always listen listen back to how things sound when played back from YouTube, because YouTube is doing stuff to your video and your audio as well. So you may be very satisfied with what you're sending and then somewhat disappointed to realize, oh, it doesn't look the way it looked when I recorded this off my camera. And that's because YouTube is compressing both the video and the audio. And it's always important to test and troubleshoot. And then the day off. So what we will typically do is we'll test beforehand, but then the day off, if we're set to live stream, we were doing our weekly things at 5 p.m. on a Saturday, we would do sound check and lights check at 3 p.m. And we would do a full test into YouTube or Facebook, stream into it. And what we typically will do is we will play the loudest song that we know is going to be the loudest, where I'm singing the loudest, playing the loudest, he's playing the loudest. And then we want to make sure nothing's clipping, that the audio is not going like that, because you're peaking and clipping. And what we find interesting is that our mixer will tell us if we're clipping at the mixer, but you can also, because there's so many stages in your chain, you could be clipping at the OBS side of things or the Blackmagic side of things. So you have to check for clipping at all stages. And then I will play, if I'm going to do a song that's just me and the ukulele, like a baritone voice solo thing, I will also check that, because when it's just me and the uke, the relative levels between the voice and the instrument become even more important, because there won't be the bass that's kind of blending us and binding it all together. So we'll do that. We'll kind of do whichever songs in the set are going to be the biggest extremes from a sound perspective, and then we play that back and we iterate and we go, oh, bass sounds too loud for this, let's see what we can do. Either EQ the low frequencies out, or just turn it down, or oh, the uke is too loud, let's adjust. The voice is too soft.
So what we typically do is we have that test stream running, and so we play a song and then we immediately go and listen to it, right? And if we have to back up in the test stream to listen to it, we do that. And we listen to it through the speakers, and we listen to it through headphones.
Yes.
Another device which actually is really useful that I have behind the MacBook here is one of these headphone amplifiers that also has like multiple outputs for the headphones. So we can plug like up to 4 headphones in there, and everyone can get like individual levels. Like listening through the headphones, you can often hear a lot of stuff that you're not going to hear like just listening through your phone or your iPad or your computer. So it's important to do that. So yeah, we'll just keep like testing like that, and we'll just play a little song, play something, and then go and listen to it, and we'll just keep iterating on it until we're happy with it, or until we run out of time.
And I think you've touched upon a really important point, Adrian, which is your stream and any audio is never going to sound the same way on every device, right? So you're making a decision at some point that, if you're streaming and you're doing it only for the audiophiles in the world who have like a Bang & Olufsen stereo at home and they're going to pick up every detail, then you might end up pushing yourself into a corner from the audio perspective where people who are listening on a more humble system are not going to hear everything. So you do have to make a decision and say, okay, let me test on a humble computer with very simple computer speakers. Can I still hear the bass? Or is this a situation where people can only hear the bass when they're listening through headphones? That's not good, right? So you want to make sure that you optimize it so that the bass doesn't sound like it's disappeared, or the voice doesn't sound like it's disappeared, depending on which device you play on. And as a result, you're going to be making compromises, and you just have to sort of blend things so that you can hear decently on any device. And typically what I do is roll off the very lowest frequencies on the bass to make sure that it's not booming and sort of making fart noises like that. And that will achieve a sufficient amount of definition in the higher frequencies. And you can also boost the higher frequencies on the bass side of the spectrum, just to make sure that it sounds good on any device.
Well, in many ways.
Also, 'cause remember before I mentioned
Sorry,
about,
he's saying.
Oh no, go ahead.
So also I mentioned before about the noise floor, and so the other thing we'll do is we just won't play anything. We'll just listen to the silence, and just to hear how good the quality is, right? Because you don't want people to be hearing all this background noise and fan noise and stuff.
In many ways, you're kind of describing like cooking on a cruise ship, right? Like you can't make things too spicy. You can't make things, a certain extreme, because everyone needs to have that middle ground, and everyone is kind of happy, I guess. Wait.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, I mean, you can test this stuff forever, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you have to at some point go, okay, that's good enough.
Good enough.
That's a really important thing too. Is like, like I mean, what we typically start hours before we're going to stream,
Mm-hmm.
and it's still never really enough time. Like we could often keep tweaking it, right? And we just go, okay, that's good enough.
Yeah. And there will be days where we don't realize that, we've got some softbox lights in our living room right now, but because we were streaming it, for our concerts are typically in the afternoon, the sunlight is playing into it, and the sun will move over the course of the afternoon, and then we might start out a little bit overexposed, and then the show ends and we're a little bit underexposed, so the lighting varies. But because we don't have a lighting technician, it's just us. Once we start playing, we're locked into whatever the setup was, and we're locked in for like an hour. And so you just have to live with those changes, and when you replay the stream afterwards and not get too hung up on the fact that, oh, my lighting might have started out great and it got a little bit less good. It's just, that's just, those are the limitations of doing it all yourself.
That is my issue with, utilizing natural light can be awesome, but it will forever be changing. And to me, I'd rather have control. That's why we block out everything for the live streams, just so that I know what to expect and that kind of thing, and I know it's going to look consistent throughout the stream. No, I think these have been great tips, and mainly, and we talked about this a little bit last night, Diane, where we talked about audio has to be at a certain level and video has to be at a certain level. Nothing is more distracting than a video that looks jittery or it is like robotic because it's cutting in and out. But at the same time, the audio has to be at least consistent. It has to be at a certain level to make it even watchable.
Yes.
There is a fine line of balance between the two. For people who are doing this as a profession or even a side gig, to me, getting audio to a certain level is important, but boosting the quality of your video, to me, is going to make more people tune in right away. And then hopefully your audio is good enough to keep them there. And I know a lot of people will say the audio has to be the best kind of thing too. So you can go back and forth a bit. But for me, I do, and luckily you do have the Asian, Canadian, Australian version of Craig with you, in the sense of having, a person who has a really good eye on that kind of stuff and has the gear to make you guys look really, really good. Because to me that it is distracting too, especially as you get flooded with all these people doing live streams nowadays too. To me, if there's something impactful about the image quality, I tend to stop to check out what's going on a little bit more so than junk quality of video but good audio, so so it is interesting kind of balance on that.
I mean, it does all make a difference, right? Because it is true, like I often will go and check out streams, and if the audio quality or the video quality is really bad, I won't stick around, right? And we've watched other people's streams too, where sometimes that's probably been a factor as well. So it's got to be, whatever you deem to be good enough. Like there's got to be some reasonable level. And I think the other thing is that now as everyone is streaming more, like the bar is getting raised a little bit here and there, right? So to have like really bad audio is not, especially if you're trying to do music, it's not really acceptable.
Yeah. And Charlie had a good question. YouTube versus Vimeo. I've never really used Vimeo, and once we started pushing with YouTube, we wanted to just be consistent with that. Any thoughts on Vimeo for you guys, or?
Yeah, we've never used it. I mean, I think one of the things to consider is I don't know with Vimeo, can you do like chat in the live streaming? Right. I mean, having the engagement with the audience, like and the interaction, like being able to see the chat and. Like we also put we put the questions up on the screen sometimes when we can pull them out of the chat, like all that kind of stuff. I don't know if we could do that on Vimeo.
Yeah, we love. We haven't explored. I think there's so much time invested in choosing. Once you choose a platform and you get to know its little quirks and foibles, you end up saying, okay, I'm just going to stick with this. It's got what I like about YouTube is that it's got the higher quality video. Generally, the audio sounds better to my ear than it does on Facebook, and anybody can watch. With Facebook, in theory, anybody can watch, but it keeps popping up those things that if you don't have a Facebook account, it wants you to log in. And for some people, that's disconcerting and it's off-putting. I just love the fact that YouTube is kind of open. And because of the pandemic, it's been such a lovely way for us to stay in touch with our audiences. We love seeing the live chat. So the live chat, and we try to answer at the end of each of our live streams. We'll go in and answer and interact with people, and we'll read questions in real time during the stream. And so we really, for us, that's really the most precious thing and beautiful thing about live streaming is that interactivity.
So just a couple of questions in the chat. So one is some people are asking about the background. This is just a fabric
the
background.
reason why you will never see a streamer use green screen is that's the most dangerous thing you could ever do. So for those of you out there, never actually showcase the green screen behind you because it will be abused really horribly.
Oh, because other people can edit stuff in after the fact?
Yes.
Oh, interesting. Interesting.
I've seen some really...
I mean, that's another thing about the whole green screen thing. I mean, I've experimented with green screen a bit, and it's very hard to do to get it like looking pretty nice, right? Like often it looks a little bit hokey.
You need a lot of uniform light, I believe, with a green screen, and you want to make sure there's no shadows.
So Glenn was asking about compression at multiple stages. So we definitely have global compression for the whole mix in the ATEM switcher, and we also will have
each
some
channel
compression on each channel of varying degrees, depending on what it is, right?
Depending on the instrument, and that's right. And you don't want too much compression, because then what will happen is that the differences between the softer sound and the louder sound, instead of saying, as Dorothy Parker once said to her boyfriend, fare thee well. I'm singing soft. As Columbus announced when he knew he was bounced, it was swell, Isabel, swell. You might, if you try to do that and you're having maximum amounts of compression, all that subtlety that I did at the beginning is going to come out too loud, and you're going to lose that sense of intimacy when somebody's like leaning into the mic and singing something that's meant to be confident, like conspiratorial or whatever. You lose if there's too much compression, a lot of emotional connection to the song is lost. So you want a happy medium.
Nice.
Any other questions that?
Someone
says yes, Vimeo does chat. Good, that's great.
So someone was asking if we have problems with the YouTube with the copyright claim.
Oh, that's a really good question.
It can be a problem, right?
Yeah, we don't monetize. I don't monetize the videos on my channel. We were doing it really to keep connected with our audiences, and some of our concerts were fundraisers, and others we had a tip jar. But you're right, and what will happen is you will get a copyright notice after the fact once you've streamed. So there are certain songs that are in my repertoire that do get a copyright notice. So for example, I've done Stardust by Hoagie Carmichael, Girl from Ipanema by Jobim. There's a song a Portuguese song, a Brazilian song that I did in our last live stream called Covardia, which got a copyright notice. Now, there's a difference between a copyright strike and a copyright notice. The copyright notice is simply to tell you that this song is copyrighted and you cannot monetize your video if it contains that song, and that's what I've had in the past. And what that means is you can either mute the audio in your video after the fact, which I would never do. You can cut it out of the video, again, which I would never do, or you live with it, and it means that video, if you were to choose to monetize it, will be demonetized, and any advertisements that run, YouTube might try to run ads in that video and then give that money to the copyright holder. The other thing is a copyright strike, and thankfully I've never had that before, but I do have an acquaintance down in Nashville who's a singer, and she told quite an alarming story where she started to perform Smile by Charlie Chaplin in a live stream, and in the middle of her live stream, YouTube actually shut down the stream because the holders of that copyright are very draconian and they actually don't want anybody performing it. So one thing that you can do if you're worried about that, during the test that I was telling you guys about that you should do, you can create an unlisted stream, play your entire set into an unlisted stream, and YouTube will parse that whole video for you, and you will see whatever songs might come up as a copyright. There's also a master list somewhere on YouTube, I think, of all the songs that have copyright protection on them. But if you want to be absolutely sure, I recommend you just play your whole set ahead of time, and you immediately know if there are any. And if you're wondering what YouTube is doing, they're using the same algorithms that a software like SoundHound does, and they're just recognizing melodic patterns, and that's how they recognize the melody. It doesn't have anything to do with whether you've given the name of the song in a description or something. The algorithm is way smarter than that. It's using pattern recognition to detect the melodies.
Now, one other quick tip about using your iPhone as your main streaming device. A lot of times we have it using the front-facing camera because we get to see ourselves in the preview. But usually that is an exponentially worse camera than the cameras on the back. So you can get creative. You can put a mirror on this side to actually help see reflection to know your framing, but you're using the really, really good cameras on the back. Usually it's such a big and drastic difference. And again, you've already paid for that camera. Or if you have someone to help set up the camera, and then you're set to go from there. But the back camera is so much better than that front-facing camera.
I love that tip, Craig. That's awesome. The mirror idea, brilliant. That's a really good idea. I love it.
all of the college things that I had to do, because you just gotta make things work, right? Oh my gosh. Any other helpful things that you guys discovered that might prevent frustrations and headaches for people moving forward?
One thing I was just going to mention is one thing to look out for is if you're taking your audio mix, let's say from a mixer, and you're feeding it into your camera, that you want to be careful there too, because a lot of the cameras have pretty noisy preamps.
Like the
right?
worst,
So,
horrible.
So I've actually got, like, on my camera right now here that we're going through, I have Sony has a separate little box that plugs into the hot shoe, and it has a digital connection, and it has separate outboard preamps, and I've got it on level 1, so the lowest possible amount of gain going through it, so it doesn't even add anything at all, right? So you want to watch out for that too. I mean, like as we were saying, like there's this whole audio chain, and you can introduce noise or problems at any stage, right? So you've got to be careful, and all it takes is just one bad thing in there to mess it all up.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great point. And also, if you do have problems with your audio, again, I can't emphasize enough this checklist of the troubleshooting checklist. I think, Craig, you did a lovely thing at the beginning of this live stream where you did a little sketch, and you were sketching out all of the points in the signal chain. So whatever your personal setup is at home, it's probably a valuable thing to do to sketch your own signal chain. And then when you're having problems, you can actually unplug something at each point in the chain and figure out what might be going wrong. Can you bypass a portion of your signal chain and do something else? That's a big lesson learned there, is to have a checklist ahead of time, so that in the moment, if something's going wrong, you're not scrambling trying to remember your own setup, that you've got it nicely mapped out for you. Another thing I would say is have a redundancy system if you can. So in other words, suppose you are using OBS and doing something slightly more sophisticated. If possible, have an iPhone set up, or a cell phone as a redundancy system set up next to you. And even if it's a more modest mic, have a microphone connected to that, so that if all else fails, you can switch in the middle if possible, and have something a backup to fall back on. And one final thing I would say, I'm not sure if you already talked about this, Craig, because we were setting up at one point and we weren't listening to everything, but sometimes you'll notice there's a delay between the audio and the video in a live stream. So when you're as an audience member, one way to mitigate that is to click on the word live, and always try to make sure that you're watching live. Refresh your browser. Sometimes you actually have to close and go back in. We have found that those syncing issues seem to be worse upon replay in Facebook and YouTube, rather than YouTube. So that's another reason we like to stream to YouTube. However, you might actually in your own signal chain be introducing a systematic lag between the audio and the video. And if you do see that, you can adjust that. If you're using OBS, you can adjust things so that your video arrives a few frames after the audio or before. Like you can move the synchronization around to test to see what the delay is. And a typical way to do this is a clap test. So like they do in the old Hollywood movies where they go click like that. So you can just clap and then watch for the difference between when you see the clap and when you hear the clap when you play it back. And if it's it'll usually be a few milliseconds, and then you'll want to adjust that accordingly to try to get better sync, because there's nothing more distracting than watching a live stream when the mouths are not in sync with what you're hearing, right? That's quite off-putting.
Yeah, so actually, as you were talking about that, I was actually chatting with some folks in the chat about that. So the thing is that you if you are going to have the audio not go through the camera, that's one of the possible things, right, is you might have a syncing issue. And the thing is that you may or may not have the ability to change that, right? Like OBS does have a way to delay it. The Blackmagic switches only in the last about a month or two ago had an update to allow you to change, to add a delay in there.
That was huge.
So that is something also to watch for as well, because it'd be terrible if it's out of sync.
Yeah, and Charlie, if you are, for us, there before that update came, it was a pain in the butt to kind of sync everything up. So what we used to do was attach the audio to the camera so that it followed the video and audio together. But like they were mentioning earlier too, we adjusted mainly the gain on the unit, the audio unit itself, and with the camera preamp, it was like just like 1 or 2 notches. Like that was it, because again, that has like the worst preamps in the camera body themselves. But that was enough to have a really clean signal and keep it connected with the HDMI video as well.
The other thing you can use, remember Craig, we were talking about the HDMI inserter. So you can get these boxes that actually you put the HDMI video signal into it, and you put a separate audio signal into it, and it actually puts it together in the same signal, right? So that it will actually come as one thing into your switch or whatever you're going to put it into. So that's another way to do it as well. And they're not too expensive, those boxes. They're pretty cheap.
Nice. And Adrian and Diane, if you don't mind, if I could get a list from you guys after the stream about things that you use or also recommend, I'm going to compile everything into a big list, and we'll send that out to everyone, or have that out downloadable
happy to do
on our website. Ruth had a great question. Any discussion about a setup for performing for a private group on Zoom? For me, the biggest tip for Zoom performances is make sure everyone else is muted. Because that's when you're going to hear the video cut in and out as it's trying to include other audio from other people. So that to me has make sure everyone else is muted for that performance. You're going to get a much better success rate of keeping all the audio just from that one user to get as clean as possible.
That's a great tip, Craig. There's also something called activate original sound in Zoom. So it's an advanced audio setting. So if you go to audio, and I think it's in the bottom right, it says advanced settings, click on that, and then you tick a box that says show the option of using original sound. And what that will do is then when you go back into your Zoom, on the top left of the screen, you're going to see something that says turn on original sound. One of the biggest problems with Zoom and Skype and all these things is that typically what they are doing is they're treating the human voice as the main thing of interest, and then anything else going on in the back is considered background noise that is deserving of being suppressed. And what happens is if you're singing and playing the ukulele, Zoom will typically have your mic showcased for the singing parts, and then when you're not singing anymore and you're just strumming, it's trying to suppress that strumming sound as background noise. So in order to get rid of this kind of algorithmic approach to audio, you turn on original sound, and it disables that noise suppression feature, and it'll make it sound much more pleasant and continuous on Zoom.
So when you do that, you have to do it in 2 places, right? Like the host of the meeting has to enable it so that people can turn it on, and then whoever is actually playing, they have to have it enabled on their side as well. So actually, just a couple of other things. So, what's my train of thought here? Okay, so someone. Oh yeah, so what I was going to say, one of the things with Zoom, you also have to be careful if you run it, if you have an external feed coming in, like through a switch or something, and if you're running Zoom on a pretty wimpy computer, you can also have syncing issues that way. I've had that happen. I was trying to run Zoom on my wimpier MacBook, and it was definitely, there was audio syncing issues, and when I did it on my other MacBook, it was fine. So that's something to watch out for. And so people are also asking about tips for Facebook feed, I assume, like for streaming on Facebook. And so we talked about that a little bit before. Just like one of the things to watch out there for is the compression on Facebook. So when we streamed on Facebook a few times, we had the output level going into Facebook lower than we would usually have it for YouTube.
Yeah, to be on the safe side so that you don't have clipping. Whatever audio levels you were set to do if you're going into YouTube, I would suggest you be at least 4 to 5 decibels lower in your output gain for going into Facebook. But one thing that is fun about Facebook is that people can chat with each other. That's the biggest thing I find nice. And the other nice thing about streaming through Facebook is you can go after the fact as the performer and answer people and sort of reply to them and like their comments and just be more interactive. With YouTube, it's kind of like the live chat is closed as soon as the stream is over and you're done, right? So that is one feature where I think Facebook is better than YouTube.
Now,
about like the gear for Zoom. I mean, so the thing that's sort of cool is that most of the stuff we're talking about today, the gear is sort of independent from whatever we use the same gear and we can stream to wherever we want. We can go to YouTube, we can go to Facebook, we can go into Zoom, we can go into a Skype call. It doesn't really matter, and that's the good thing about it. So if you're changing, if your target platform is different, you don't necessarily have to change your gear at all.
That's right.
Now, one of the cool things about having the difficulty about trying to choose what platform to stream to can be solved with multiple. There's a couple different programs that will stream that signal to multiple platforms. One is called Restream. Another one that we've used recently is called StreamYard. And that you can broadcast to multiple, like you can do Twitch, you can do YouTube, you can do Facebook all at the same time, and you can even see comments from each platform pop up as well.
That's pretty cool.
So there are some built-in effects in there too. You can feature comments on the main screen itself through its program, and it's web-based, so you don't even have to install anything, which is amazing. But there are some limitations, like you can't do all of the overlays that you necessarily want in like OBS, that kind of thing. There's some things that you just can't do, but that is a great service if you wanted to hit up multiple platforms and have a little bit more interactiveness as well between each platform. But yeah, as Adrian mentioned, all of the gear that gear tips that we've been talking about, it doesn't matter whether it's Facebook or YouTube or Facebook Live or Zoom. I mean, the big thing again is getting a better microphone, hopefully. That's typically your number one starting point, because again, most of the cameras nowadays are great with a lot of light. Get that angle up a little bit, get the mic closer to you, and that's like the biggest, because everything revolves around that. Even when you get the higher end stuff, still the same principles still apply. You still want that mic close to your signal. You still want to make sure you don't maximize any of the components in that line. You just want to make sure, and because when you're trying to troubleshoot too many things at once, it's so much harder.
Absolutely, that's really good advice. One thing at a time. Yes, absolutely. And I would also say if people are just using one microphone, and I know, Craig, I'm sure you already mentioned this, but you'll want to practice playing the exact same song the exact same way. No, don't sing louder or play differently, and then just literally do one take with the microphone up here, another take with the microphone down here, another take with the microphone down here, and then compare. And what you will of course see is that when the mic's down here, you're hearing more uke, less voice, and when the mic's up here, more voice, less uke. But what's fascinating is the uke is actually an instrument that cuts through quite a bit, and it, depending on the type of mic you have, even if your mic is way up here and you're singing and you're thinking your singing will be loud enough, the uke might still overpower you depending on the type of player you are. If you do a lot of strumming, like I don't know. Let me just show you the difference. I will play a little bit of Billy's Blues 2 different ways, and I'll play it strumming and I'll play it plucking, and you'll see the difference. Am I? Oh, no. Okay. I love that man. Tell the world I do. Love that man. Tell the world I do. But when he mistreats me, makes me feel so blue. So that's me kind of trying to strum and pluck gently. Let me show you what it sounds like if I hammer it. I love that man. Tell the world I do. Love that man. Tell the world I do. You know, like that's crazy, right? So I was deliberately strumming really, really loud so that you would hopefully hear that the voice is overpowered by that. So you
Well,
have
it
to check.
completely distorted everything.
Oh, okay. Sorry, that was totally distorted. Sorry, Craig.
No, it's
Well, I hope I've proven my point. Was the first one also distorted, Craig?
No.
Okay, so that's just a classic. Like, so sorry for everybody's ears for distorting, but I was trying to prove like how ridiculous it is, like how sensitive it will be. Like when you're playing, you have to test yourself, and what that might mean is that you might have to play differently than you normally would when you're not amplified. You might have to be super gentle. Like I'll try and be super gentle now. I love that man. Tell the world I do. Love that man, tell the world I do. But when he mistreats me, makes me feel so blue. So you see, I was barely touching the strings there, and you probably could still hear that. That's because my mixer is set to a reasonably high level. But you absolutely, that's probably the most important thing you can do from a performance perspective is getting the balance right between the voice and the ukulele. And it's not easy. I would say that sometimes I don't get it right because we play such a different variety of music during our concerts. We do some bossa nova, and for that I'm going to be plucking. And then sometimes we're doing swing tunes. And I have to remember, and you get excited when you're performing, right? You think, oh yeah, I'm gonna dig in now, but you have to remember, don't play too much. Play less because the microphone is picking everything up and you don't want it to overpower the voice.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the things also is that like the dynamic range of, you know, like what's the loudest and what's the softest, right? That's like another thing. Like when we do our testing, right? Like we're playing the loudest into the stream, into the test stream, and we're also playing something really soft as well.
Well, you had a great question about headphones.
You still there, Craig?
Yes, headphones.
Cool.
Yes, typically if you're in a Zoom meeting, especially if you're doing more than one person, headphones will help. The reason why Diane and Adrian aren't using headphones at the moment is that their mics are farther from the speakers that I'm coming out of than your typical kind of setup, so that you won't hear me in their microphones and create that loop or that echo that happens. But for me, because I'm so close to my computer, if I was to use the speaker audio for the Skype call that we're having, chances are you would hear them in this mic being picked up because of that proximity, how close the speakers are to the microphone. So that's why I'm using headphones. But typically, yeah, headphones are usually recommended if you're in a Zoom or other kind of live conferencing thing.
And we also we turned our speakers way down so that we wouldn't get the speaker fed into our mics right now. So you're coming out really softly to mitigate that too.
Awesome.
Do you want to get the stream?
All right. Any final questions from you guys before I let these two guys go? This has been so much fun so far. And again, the crazy thing is that we could spend like a couple hours on just one element. We could just on microphone choices and techniques or camera setups and different reasons why we would use one brand over the other, or different lenses, different light setups. There's so many things that we could spend the whole afternoon on. So,
Can they play us out?
So just on the question about whether you need 1,000 subscribers to do YouTube Live, I think that may have been true at one point, but it's certainly like Diane, you don't have 1,000.
No, yeah, we're okay.
I think it might have been true at one point.
And maybe it's true to stream from certain devices. Like I'm not sure if, but anyway, no, we don't. You don't need to have a zillion subscribers to go live.
Oh no, I think you're right. On mobile, you need at least 1,000. It says to use your.
Yeah, I think
That's what it's. Oh, interesting.
it is interesting. I think it's it must be to do with the to stop people from just
Yeah, so you can
streaming
use
from their
your
pockets.
laptop or
I don't
desktop without any kind of subs requirement. But for mobile, to use your Android or iOS device, you have to have at least 1,000. Interesting.
Yeah.
It's sort of funny. It's actually it's like the opposite of what you might think.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm looking at the YouTube thing. Now, interesting. Huh. Awesome. Now, oh yeah, Ashley just wrote in the chat. We should have just said, "Hey, Ashley, what do we need?" Well, thank you guys so much for joining us today. Can you talk a little bit of tomorrow's live stream?
Yes, tomorrow's event. We're so happy that you guys are joining us for that. So we're really looking forward to it. We are doing a live jazz workshop, and we called it Jazz Booster because it's called From Page to Performance. So we're going to kick things off at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, and we're going to do a workshop from scratch on setting Duke Ellington's Caravan. We're going to go through how I would learn the melody, how I would really dig into the chords, get the song in your head, learn to improvise a little bit on the chord changes, and then we'll go through how to choose voicings. Like, a real book chart will just say C7, for example, for the first chord. Well, how do you choose which inversions, which voicings of the dominant C chord that you're going to use? Are there some color notes and tension notes that we're going to add to help emphasize the melody? We'll go through that, the logic of how you choose that. Adrian's going to do a lesson on groove and locking in with the bass and really internalizing that Latin tune, because Caravan is a song that goes from a Latin groove in the A sections to a swing bridge, and so we'll talk about that as well. And then we're also going to have you guys on, which we're super excited about, as our special guests to talk about our tips and approaches for memorizing songs. How do you memorize lyrics, chords, arrangements, and in order to perform them and get off the page and not need to rely on looking at a lyrics sheet or a chord sheet? What are your tips? And I think everyone has different approaches. Some people are visual, some people are shape-based, some people are saying the chord names in their head. So we'll be talking about all of that, and we're going to finish. That will be around 2:30 that you guys will be joining us, and then 3 o'clock we're going to do a jazz jam. And so in the the live stream is free for anybody to watch. It's going to be on my Ukulele for Jazz Singers YouTube page, and then there's a small donation of $6.50 Canadian, which is about $5 US, that we're asking for to download the package of materials that go with the workshop. And that is going to be, there's a booklet that's about 20 pages long that goes through all the stuff I've been talking about. And there are 2 backing tracks as well that I made, nice salsa backing tracks, one for the full form of the song, and then one that just really emphasizes that C7 chord, so that we can do some call and response and improvisation exercises. My philosophy is that learning vocal improvisation is a wonderful stepping stone to improvising on the instrument, and so we'll be talking about that as well. So that's over tomorrow, 1 p.m. Eastern Time, Sunday, July 26th, and we hope that you guys will join us, because this is something that I've been doing a series of jazz repertoire workshops via Zoom over the summer, and some of the participants in those workshops asked for this. They said, I asked them, what would you really like to have as a workshop that would push you to the next level? And they said, we want to know, how do you arrange a jazz standard from scratch? Like, how do you come up with your arrangements? So that's what we're diving into.
Nice. Before we have you guys, if you don't mind playing us out, but right before you guys do, there's a couple other extra questions. Why, again, headphones is to get less of that echo or feedback issue. If you not getting any at the moment, then that's totally fine, but typically that will negate any of those issues. We'll have a list of everything mentioned today, and we'll put it on our website for free for download, probably by tonight or tomorrow afternoon, so keep an eye out for that. Again, tomorrow we'll have the live stream with Diane and Adrian. And our last live stream before the big move will be on August 9th. And that is going to be an adaptation of my masterclass on Intro to Theory on the ukulele, where we take pretty much everything about basic theory and how to apply it right away, how to start transposing easily, and actually how to use that information to start soloing and doing fills. It all goes hand in hand, but that will be August 9th. Make sure you're on our mailing list to keep up with information on that, but that's going to be a ton of fun. Adrian and Diane, thank you guys so much for joining us. Is there a song that you guys could play for us to kind of play us out here?
Sure, yeah, we could do the same tune we were just doing. It's a blues by Billie Holiday called Billie's Blues. I did forget, Craig, to mention that people can download those materials for the workshop tomorrow at the website that's just called ukuleleforjazzsingers.com. So
Nice.
it's all there.
Perfect.
But thank you so much, Sarah and Craig, and we can't wait to see you tomorrow. And so we'll do this song now, Billie's Blues. 1, 2, 12 up front? Or just straight in?
Whatever.
Well, straight in, maybe. 1, 2, 3, 4. Love that man, tell the world I do. Love that man, tell the world I do. But when he mistreats me, makes me feel so blue. My man wouldn't give me no breakfast, wouldn't give me no dinner, fought me about my supper, then he put me out of doors. Had the nerve to lay a matchbox on my clothes. I didn't have so many, but I had a long way to go. Ooh, I've been your slave ever since I've been your babe. Been your slave ever since I've been your babe. But before I'll be your dog, I'll see you laying in your grave. Been your slave ever since I've been your babe. Ever since I've been your babe. Been your slave ever since I've been your babe. But before I'll be your dog, I'll see you laying in your grave. Some men like me 'cause I'm happy, some 'cause I'm snappy. Some call me honey, others think I've got money. Some tell me, baby, you're built for speed. Well, when you put that all together, makes me everything a good man needs.
Thanks, guys.
Awesome,
That was
awesome,
awesome.
awesome. I think someone has.
Thanks, you guys.
Someone's gonna say goodbye.
Yes.
Let me-
We were just, I wanted to make sure that Cameron and I got to say hello and bye-bye. Thank you guys so much for joining
Hello,
us.
cutie pie Cameron. Hi, Sarah.
Thank you guys again for joining us, and we're really excited about tomorrow.
Oh, thank you. We're really looking forward to having you guys. It's going to be a blast.
Awesome.
Awesome. And for
So
those.
good luck to everyone with setting up their own tech and setting up their live streams. I think we're entering a new era, really, and this is going to be our reality for a good long while. So
Yeah.
it's good. It's really generous of you guys to be doing this and helping out the community to up their game, because I think we all are stuck in this world for a while.
Yeah.
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 It's it is one thing we want to make sure, especially for the musicians who saw everything lined up for the next year and a half just vanish.
Gone.
You know, we're trying our best to make sure that they have another way, they have another path, and again, not have to go through the same exact frustrations that we did the first time setting everything up. But yeah, it's been great. I'll stick around for about 10 minutes to help answer any last minute questions in the chat, because I know a lot of questions are probably still being thought of at the moment. But yeah, Diane and Adrian, thank you guys so much for joining us, and we will see you guys tomorrow.
Yes, see you tomorrow.
Yes, see you tomorrow.
Bye, guys.
Thanks, you guys.
Awesome.
Take
Aloha.
care.
Thank you
Aloha
so
for having
much.
us. Aloha. Thank you so much.
They are the
love them.
best.
So they came to visit us. Was it last year or the year before? I don't remember now, but we had so much fun when they came out to San Diego to visit us, and now they're just going to have to come to Hawaii to visit us. Or we should actually go visit them in Canada as well. But
Yeah.
who doesn't want to take a trip to Hawaii?
I know, right? And if there's any last minute questions that we can help answer, please let us know in the chat. But this has been a ton of fun.
Yes, thank you guys so much for joining us. I had a lot of fun. I was listening in, hanging out with Cameron after he was done with his
Oh, that's a
nap.
great question. I'm using the same computer to bring in our guests via Skype into OBS. But this is a pretty hefty computer. I am running the main thing off of a iMac Pro. But our next setup, I want to experiment just using the laptop to see if there's anything that goes awry, but I will let you guys know when that happens. Do we ever use wireless mic headsets? To me, if you're going to go wireless headsets, you better invest in the really good ones, because nothing is worse, again, than having choppy audio that some of the more entry-level wireless systems might have, and
Well,
they have more interference.
And the one thing too, I don't usually like to use those wireless headsets in general, because it keeps the mic there, and I know my laugh is loud. So if I'm gonna laugh really loud, I need to move back. I don't want to, have that clip. So for me, I don't like having a mic unless I'm only talking and I know I won't be, laughing or making exclamations. I don't like having a mic.
All right, OBS plugins. The only plugin we have is the NDI plugin, so we can bring in something like Skype into OBS. Any good basic camera recommendations? The Canon M50 was one of 2019 or 2018's one of the best webcam or live streaming cameras, and it's a tiny little guy that has a clean HDMI out. That is definitely affordable. It's not quite as robust, but it has different lenses that you can purchase to create, different looks and everything. That's typically my go-to. But again, even now, there's amazing phones that have incredible cameras if you can dial that in. But there's a lot. I'll have a list of cameras that I recommend for live streaming in the notes that we put together for this, because there are certain ones that I got to double check that it has a clean HDMI or not out, because I don't want to rely on just the beta software from Canon at the moment if we're doing any of those. Craig, do you use depth of field with DSLR cameras to blur the backgrounds a bit? Yes, so definitely this is a 2.8 f-stop on this lens that gives me a little bit of that kind of blurred background. With Sarah's camera, I think it is currently at 1.8. I think I can go down to, I think it's at 1.8. So if I actually brought her camera in closer, let's say, this close. So part of it has to do with how close. Part of it has to do with how close your subject is to the background, right? So, when I was up close with this little guy, you saw that entire background just blur out, just completely kind of creamy with that. But part of it is knowing how to use your camera is really getting. So same thing here. If I brought this up closer and it focused on that, everything else that's farther from the subject gets even more blurred out compared to me, who I'm kind of halfway between the camera and some of the background. So part of it is really playing around with that. That's why you'll see a lot of studios, they'll be kind of close to the camera and they have like a long hallway in the back and it looks incredibly diffused and blurred out. Let's see. Do you have any jamming practice? Again, for me, because, we could try Jamulus, but to me, it just wasn't worth the money or frustrations on trying to kind of get things to work. I just typically tell people, we'll wait till things get better rather than all these kind of workarounds. If things do pop up that are better, we'll definitely try it. But I know Jamulus has a pretty expensive buy-in. Nani, please do the laptop. What about Chromebook? I do not own a Chromebook on here, but if we were able to borrow one to experiment with, I would love to try that. Have you tried using both computers connected with NDI to stream OBS? We haven't tried that yet. I just never needed the secondary computer. Is loop back function useful? Loop back. Techo, let me know what you mean by loop back. I'm not quite sure what that is in regarding to. You're welcome, Steve. Thank you for joining us. If I bought a blue snowball mic, can I run that into my iPhone while I record for recording? That I will double check, because now, with the iOS changes themselves too, like I said, I know a lot of the even the regular iPads can run external microphones, USB microphones. I'm not sure. I'll double check. I'll do some research on the iPhone itself, but I have a feeling that it can now. But again, there's been so many changes in the past few months too with everything. So I'll definitely double check that. Thank you for bringing that up, Jason. Where was I? Betsy. Yes, he does always upstage me nowadays. What is the device you plug into between the camera and computer so HDMI will work? So those are the HDMI capture devices, which is the Cam Link, which is about 100. Oh, let's see if it focuses. Let me hide. Oh, never mind. Cam Link, or these kind of cheaper Chinese ones that started appearing on Amazon for like a fourth of the price, that work pretty dang great. It's like $30. I'll put links into that list that we'll put together for you guys. But those are, if you want single cameras, this is what we use. For the multi-camera stuff, that we use the ATEM Mini Pro, and there is a non-pro version of that as well. But again, that is going to be this guy here that controls the 4 different videos, as well as monitors the audio if I wanted to from each thing. And this is actually how we use the transitions going back and forth.
And I think,
as well,
if I remember right, we had the smaller one at one point. But we ended up needing, especially with the mini fests, it just made more sense to get the bigger one. But there is a smaller one available as well.
Let's see. What is F mic?
So as you all can see and tell, Mr. Cameron is big on bouncing. It's one of his new skills. He's almost crawling. He can get on all fours and rock back and forth. He hasn't quite figured out how to put the arm in front to then do the legs. He's gotten close, but then ends up falling over and scaring himself. But he's going to get there way sooner than we think. And he already has 2 teeth. Sorry, I'm not very close to the mic because I'm worried he's going to touch it. He already has 2 teeth.
I haven't used film mic yet for iOS, but anything that gives you more control over your video and audio is always going to be really, really nice. But I haven't tried that particular app yet. So I've been using a Melee a day for my iPhone, so audio just from phone mic, both. Uke not amplified either, but may put an external mic in amp. Uke. Yeah, again, any kind of external mic is always going to be head and shoulders above the iPhone mic itself. Lori will definitely try to find, and I'll make a list of the microphones capable with a lightning input for iPhones. Oh, thank you, Rochelle. Oh, Adrian popping good. Thank you, Adrian.
And thank you guys so much for sticking around for so long today, because I know this is a little bit of a long one, but I mean, there's so many wonderful questions. So we figured this was the perfect time to just answer as many as we can.
Oh, Jamulus is free. Okay, I must be thinking of a different application, and we'll check out Jamulus if it's free, just to see how we do. That's great. Thanks, Glenn, for that.
Yeah.
Let's see. Currently use a Surf. Yeah, Surface Pros are fantastic. Same thing. A lot of PC users, and OBS actually has more functions on a PC than a Mac, so that is great. Loopback is a software. Let's see. Loopback. Oh, I'll take a look at this. Yeah, it seems like a routing device. That could definitely be useful, but for most applications, you probably don't need something like that at the moment. But I'll take a look, Tuck, and let you know. Let's see.
I'm always amazed at how quickly Craig in real time can like quickly research and take a look at stuff and be able to know, all of the a lot of information on so many of these things. He's spent so much time just researching and working out all of our gear and things, and so I'm always really, really grateful, because it's a lot of work trying to figure out what will work with what system, etc. So
yeah, and Charlie, we're using OBS for streaming and not from the Mini Pro itself. I just like having a ton of more control using OBS, and I can troubleshoot much faster. Luckily, we haven't had any issues with it crashing on the computer, knock on wood. But typically I just like having that kind of control, especially for the mini fests where we're bringing in so many different things, and it just made more sense to use. But if we were to stream things down a little bit, I could definitely see us using the Mini Pro more for streaming itself.
I think we've had some issues. This was, I think, before the update. We had some issues with syncing early on, some of our earlier streams, or we would do our sound check the night
You
before.
gotta either raise your mic volume or sit closer.
Sorry, I'll sit closer. I'm just trying to make sure camera doesn't touch.
And is it on?
Oh. It helps if I turn it on. Sorry, guys. With OBS, we had a little bit of sync issues. Like this was like in 2018 when we were first starting doing the live streams. But I know sometimes we would also have an issue where we would do our sound check, everything worked, everything was great the night before, and then for some reason when it was time to stream the next day, all of a sudden like stuff didn't work. But I don't think that was OBS. I think that was actually the cam links, because we were doing some daisy chaining that you aren't really supposed to do with those.
Processing power for OBS, I mean, you do want to, like Diane mentioned, you do want a decent graphics card because it is rendering a lot of things to showcase in that preview and to push. but we'll try it on the laptop and see if we run into any of those issues the next time, just to test that. And we maybe will do a quick unplanned one down the road just to experiment. Ranice, again, what items you're planning to sell and unload before you move to Oahu?
Great question. Furniture. Lots of furniture.
No, for the sale, right?
For the sale? Oh, for honor. I thought they were just talking about everything that we own. Just CDs and some strings. And there'll be some straps that will be for sale that'll already be pre-made. But if you go to our website, you'll see the CD bundle is already up for sale. It's all of the work that we have that's still in print. That's up for sale. So already, I haven't put the strings up yet for string packages. So if you want to buy multiples of our sets of strings, I'll try to get to that tonight. And then the straps, it's going to take me a little bit because there's one big order I need to fill first before I can put up what I have in stock on the website to be for sale.
I think we might have actually some extra cases that we might put on sale as well, rather than bring it down with us. We'll keep you guys updated on our mailing list for sure.
Oh yes, and lava lamps. If anybody wants lava lamps, I will not be taking them to Hawaii. And some of you may or may not know this about me, but I used to collect them.
And thank you guys for all the kind words. We haven't tried any of those Lawton audio microphones yet. Maybe soon. But we've been so happy with using the Roswell mics. It's just been incredible. Awesome. I think that's all of the questions. Oh, thank you guys again for joining us and spending some of your day with us. This has been, like I said, a really fun conversation about just some of the struggles and issues that we've run into. A lot of actually, I didn't actually talk about some of our struggles as much. A lot of times it had to do with how finicky the HDMI capture cards were. Yeah. Especially trying to add more than one at a time. So having the switcher has helped tremendously. It was definitely one of our best purchases in the last couple of years. OBS again is the guy that allows us to use the iPad and have its own separate window. The software I was using is Notability, which I've raved about all year long. It's just so incredibly versatile,
and it's worth buying. Don't just do the free thing.
Oh yeah,
just
you have to buy the full price so that it does the handwriting recognition and the snap to grid for any of the shapes. I'll be using it a lot during the August 9th workshop as well. Moses, great to see you. Like I said, if you guys have questions down the road as you experiment, definitely let us know as well. We've run into like every issue that you could. Again, a lot of times though, it's the basic stuff. It's your internet speeds, your upload speed in particular. It is your your lighting or your audio placement, your microphone placement. So that, get those basics down first, because it's always easy to adapt from there. But even if you buy expensive gear, if your microphone placement is off, or the actual settings from your camera are not efficient, those are the things that can definitely hinder your progress through this. What is the writing program here is, and this is only for the iPad, I think, but it's an incredible application for it.
And also we used Notability, that application, for creating. We did our Christmas album, and we did actually a play along book, so you can actually play our arrangements with us.
So I gotta move.
And we used Notability for that as well. So those of you that have that book, you can look at it and go, oh yeah, that's
so just again a quick reference of what this can do. So like Nalikimaka. So we're able to quickly do grids. And again, I'll show you how quick, like, you can do that. And I'll straighten it up for you, etc. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, it's a really great program to use. I actually have used it also for creating packets for our mini fests and other PDFs. It's really, really handy. I think I used to use Adobe Sketch, but just Notability. I love the grid. I love being able to, I don't know, there's just a lot more, it's very user friendly. And that's one of the things I really like about it. Because I'm not super tech savvy the way that Craig is. And so for me, Notability was so easy to use and it just made sense. And it was easy to find where things are as far as being able to change the color of things, etc. And it works really well, of course, with the pencil.
So I could do things like that. I mean, just really quickly have things dialed in. So we use this for our book, our Christmas book. A lot of our packets are done this way too.
Yeah.
But you can also import other images and whatnot and edit them.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's just a fantastic app that we use for a lot of these things. So again, kind of quickly kind of dive into and just start creating it and being able to duplicate really quickly. Awesome. Well, thank you guys again so very, very much. If you guys have more questions, definitely email us. But we'll put a list together either by tonight or by tomorrow afternoon. We'll let our mailing list know when that's ready. But that will be on our live stream page on our website with the other downloadable materials from past workshops as well. Definitely check out tomorrow's workshop with Diane and Adrian, and we'll be making a spot appearance on that. But the big one is going to be that August 9th. If you have any questions on theory or how to just sit in and jam or sit in and do solos, this workshop is going to be for you. I'm going to break down how easy it is and also how easy it is to practice being able to figure out what key you're in and how to adapt and how to start filling in the gaps on that. That's going to be a lot of fun. But thank you guys so very much for joining us today. Hopefully we will see you soon. And yeah, we hope you guys are staying safe out there, and hopefully we'll see you guys very soon. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Aloha.
Bye, everybody.